Chapter 310. Ji Tianqing instantly discerned that the old man with white eyebrows and yellow robes possessed a strength at the 7th level of the origin core stage or above. This person's strength and aura were around the same as the Sky Pillar sect's elders. But Ji Tianqing was sure that this person was absolutely not an elder or deacon of the Sky Pillar sect. He'd never seen this short and ugly old man that pretended to have a sage-like demeanor. Meanwhile, Yan clearly saw the situation within the cave and immediately revealed an expression of sudden understanding. Senior brother Tianqing, I know, this is the Nine Dragon Cave, our sect's secret place. Even though Yan lowered his voice, the cave was empty and silent, and the yellow-robed old man was instantly startled awake. He turned around to look at Ji Tianqing and Yan with shock, and his eyes instantly opened wide as he revealed an expression of disbelief. How is this possible? How did you two come in? This old man's heaven origin grand formation was actually broken by two brats that are still wet behind the ears? The yellow-robed old man was stunned, obviously unable to believe it. Ji Tianqing shouted angrily right away. Who are you? Why have you trespassed into our sect's forbidden area? The yellow-robed old man returned to his senses, and his face revealed a savage smile as he immediately transformed into a golden light that charged towards the two of them. Humph. Since I was discovered by you, then it's your bad luck. Go die. In the blink of an eye, the yellow-robed old man charged before the two of them, and he swung his palms to strike out a few tens of golden palm silhouettes that fiercely charged towards the two of them. Ji Tianqing and Yan's faces went grim, and they immediately swung their palms and fists, striking out fistlights and palm silhouettes to block the yellow-robed old man's attack. Qian Yu and the golden-eyed white tiger immediately counterattacked as well, helping the two of them block the yellow-robed old man's attack. Qian Yu swung his claws to strike out a few tens of icy blue lights, and the golden-eyed white tiger opened its mouth to spit out a ball of blazing wildfire. The attacks of both sides collided with a loud bang, exploding out a dazzling 5-colored brilliance in midair, and exploding out with a deafening bang. Bang! 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 The loud bangs reverberated intensely within the cave and didn't stop for a long time. The yellow-robed old man's attack was blocked by everyone. This result obviously exceeded the yellow-robed old man's expectations. You actually have some skills. It seems that this old man has underestimated you. The yellow-robed old man cried out in surprise and stopped attacking. He turned around and fled without hesitation, rushing towards the teleportation gate in the corner of the cave. He obviously had a guilty conscience and didn't want to get entangled with Ji Tianqing and Yan. He didn't want to waste time and alarm the experts of the Sky-bearing sect. Chase! Don't let him escape! Ji Tianqing made a prompt decision and let out a low shout. He pulled out the black dragon sword and chased after him. He waved his sword and slashed out a dazzling divine dragon sword shadow. Roar! An earth-shattering dragon roar erupted, causing everyone's eardrums to hurt. The huge divine dragon sword shadow was about to hit the yellow-robed elder. However, the yellow-robed old man was an origin core martial artist after all, and his strength far surpassed Ji Tianqing's by 10 times. At the critical moment, the yellow-robed old man waved his sleeve and shot out a dark yellow talisman at the dragon sword shadow. That talisman instantly turned into a huge light shield, blocking between him and the divine dragon sword shadow. Bang! In the deafening sound, the divine dragon sword shadow and the huge light shield collapsed at the same time, bursting into light fragments that filled the sky. A violent and raging wind swept out in all directions, blowing up the dust on the ground. The cave became murky and muddy, making it impossible to see the surroundings clearly. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the yellow-robed old man rushed into the teleportation gate as fast as lightning and escaped from the Nine Dragon Cave. When Ji Tianqing and Yan passed through the smoke and dust and chased to the teleportation gate collapsed with a bang and dissipated. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing couldn't help but frown. He cursed with a grim expression. Damn old thief. He actually escaped. Yan's anger hadn't subsided. After a moment of silence she comforted. Senior brother Tianqing, you don't have to blame yourself. That yellow-robed old thief is an origin core martial artist. He just has a guilty conscience and is eager to escape. If he wants to escape, we can't stop him at all. If he really wants to fight to the death with us, we are definitely not his match. Of course, Ji Tianqing knew this, so he nodded and said that's true. This Nine Dragon Cave is a secret place of our sect. That yellow-robed old thief's whereabouts are mysterious. He is obviously spying on our sect's secrets. This matter is of great importance. Let's report to Master as soon as possible. Yen naturally nodded in agreement and had no objections. The two searched for a while in the Nine-Dragon Cave before finding a passage protected by a formation. Ji Tianxing took out the Sky Pillar token and placed it on the stone door at the entrance of the passage, successfully opening the stone door. After a quarter of an hour, he and Yen left the Nine-Dragon Cave through the passage. After walking out of the cave, he discovered that outside the cave was the peak of the Cloud Sky Peak. The Cloud Sky Peak was located in the middle of the 9 peaks of the Sky Pillar sect and was the core of the 9 peaks. This peak was behind the Scarlet Sky Peak and was the residence of several elders and deacons. Ji Tianxing and Yen went down the Cloud Sky Peak and hurried to the Sky Pillar Hall of the Scarlet Sky Peak to ask for an audience with Sect Master Chu Tianxing. The two waited in the Sky Pillar Hall for a while before Chu Tianxing quickly walked into the hall. "Greetings, Sect Master." Ji Tianxing and Yen bowed at the same time. Chu Tianxing hurriedly walked in front of the two and raised his hand, indicating for them to rise. He revealed a gratified smile and looked up and down at Yen. He nodded in satisfaction and said, "Yen, your wildfire has finally been resolved? That's great." Yen was also full of joy and hurriedly explained, "Master, it was Senior Brother Tianxing who helped me get rid of the wildfire." He briefly recounted the matter of getting rid of the wildfire. After Chu Tianxing finished listening, his eyes shone brightly as he stared at Ji Tianxing and said solemnly, "Good. Very good. Tianxing, you are indeed a good disciple of Master. Not only is your talent outstanding, but you are also quick-witted and loyal, helping your fellow disciples with all your might." What Chu Tianxing said was from the bottom of his heart. In recent months, he had witnessed Ji Tianxing's rapid rise and growth. Seeing Ji Tianxing's courage and responsibility, his heart was only gratified and pleasantly surprised. Ji Tianxing said a few words of modesty before he got down to business. He cupped his hands and reported, "Master, when Junior Brother Yen and I returned to the sect just now, we were in a mountain 100 miles away." He reported the Tianyuan array, the transmission door and the yellow-robed old man in detail to Chu Tianxing. The smile on Chu Tianxing's face suddenly disappeared, and his eyes became solemn and gloomy. "Someone can sneak into the Nine Dragons Cave? Damn it! I will immediately send someone to investigate the situation and strengthen the defense." Then he called the black-robed guard and gave a few orders. After the black-robed guard left, Chu Tianxing calmly said to Yen, you have just recovered from a serious illness and have just returned to the sect. Go back to your residence and rest first." Yen was very smart. Of course, he knew that Master had something important to discuss with Senior Brother Tianxing, so he obediently took his leave. After Yen left, Chu Tianxing's face was solemn and he said in a low voice, "Tianxing, there are some things that Master should tell you." Chapter 3:11. In the northeast of the Sky Pillar sect, there was a nameless mountain peak about 150 kilometers away. The mountain peak was thousands of meters high and was covered with lush forests. This place was located at the border between the Sky Pillar sect and the Tianjian sect, and was only 150 kilometers away from Dragon Mountain. Swoosh! A golden figure suddenly appeared on the originally quiet mountain peak and rushed into the forest as fast as lightning. The golden figure was none other than the yellow-robed, pot-bellied old man with white eyebrows. He passed through the forest as fast as a gust of wind and entered a cave. The entrance of the cave was protected by an array, and several black-robed deacons were guarding the passage inside the cave. Seeing the yellow-robed old man enter the cave, the black-robed deacons bowed and respectfully said, "Greetings, Guest Elder Huang Fu." Guest Elder Huang Fu ignored the deacons and quickly passed through the passage and entered a huge cave. The man-made cave had a radius of 100 meters and was very spacious. The surrounding rock walls were inlaid with gems and hundreds of stone lamps, illuminating the entire cave. Several stone rooms were carved into the rock wall on the north side of the cave, and the stone doors were tightly shut. Two black-robed deacons stood on both sides of each stone door as guards, standing motionless like statues. Guest Elder Huang Fu opened the stone door in the middle and quickly entered the stone room. In the spacious and bright stone room, a middle-aged man in a blue robe was sitting on a stone bench. His body was as thin as a bamboo pole, and his aura was as sharp as a sword. A scroll was placed on the stone table in front of him, and he was reading it attentively. Hearing footsteps at the door, the middle-aged man looked up and immediately smiled. "Guest Elder Huang Fu, you're finally back. Guest Elder Huang Fu walked in front of him and respectfully cupped his hands. Greetings, Sect Master. Without a doubt, this blue-robed middle-aged man was the Tianjin Sect Master. He waved his hand, indicating that Guest Elder Huang Fu could dispense with the formalities, and asked expectantly, Guest Elder Huang Fu, did your trip go smoothly? Did you enter the Nine Dragons Cave? Guest Elder Huang Fu revealed a complacent smile and confidently said, Fortunately, I didn't fail you. This subordinate successfully sneaked into the Nine Dragons Cave and saw the 9 dragon pillars and the array diagram. Really? That's great. The Tianjin Sect Master's eyes lit up, and he was pleasantly surprised. Guest Elder Huang Fu, quickly tell me when we can take action to destroy the Sky Pillar Sect's 9 dragon spirit vein. Guest Chamberlain Huang Fu frowned. After pondering for a moment, he shook his head and said, Sect Master, the 9 dragon pillars and the Great Formation are both very mysterious and powerful existences. Your subordinate has only seen the 9 dragon veins dragon pillars and the formation diagram. I haven't had the chance to study them in detail, let alone see through the mysteries of the 9 dragon veins. Furthermore, with our current strength, it's simply impossible to destroy the 9 dragon spiritual pulse. This matter needs to be considered at length. The smile on the Tianjin Sect Master's face disappeared. He could only nod and say, Well, let's study it carefully. The Sky Pillar Sect has been passed down for 1,000 years. Its foundation is unimaginably powerful. How can we destroy it in just 2 or 3 years? Seeing that the Tianjin Sect Master was in low spirits, Guest Huang Fu hurriedly changed the topic. That's right, Sect Master. This time, when your subordinate sneaked into the 9 dragon cave to observe the Great Formation, I encountered an interesting matter. When this subordinate was observing the formation in the 9 dragon cave, a teenage boy and a 10-year-old child broke through the subordinate's heavenly origin formation and entered the 9 dragon cave. Those 2 brats, who are still wet behind the ears, actually have strength comparable to the origin core stage. The Tianjin Sect Master suddenly frowned and said in a cold tone, To have such strength at such a young age, those 2 brats must be the elite geniuses of the Sky Pillar Sect, right? They should be. Guest Elder Huang Fu nodded and said with a face full of regret, Unfortunately, those 2 brats had spirit beasts as pets. Your subordinate couldn't do anything to them for a while. Your subordinate didn't dare to delay for fear of being discovered by the powerhouses of the Sky Pillar Sect, so I promptly withdrew from the 9 dragon cave. Otherwise, your subordinate would have killed those 2 brats. The Tianjin Sect Master was silent and didn't respond. He didn't care much about this matter. His mind was full of thoughts about the 9 dragon spirit vein. He only wanted to destroy the Sky Pillar Sect's spirit vein formation as soon as possible. At this moment, the stone room's door opened again. A tall and sturdy old man in a white robe, with white hair and a beard, quickly walked in, holding a horsetail whisk with a golden handle and silver thread. The white-robed old man had the demeanor of an enlightened expert. He revealed an unfathomable smile and calmly said, Sect Master, Guest Elder Huang Fu has already snuck into the 9 dragon cave to investigate. Now, can you believe that the spirit vein map I gave you is real? Guest Elder Huang Fu's expression changed slightly when he saw the white-robed old man arrive, and he hurriedly cupped his hands in greeting. Greetings, Taoist Master Heavenly Secret. The Tianjin Sect Master laughed heartily and explained, Haha, Taoist Master must be joking. Since the day you gave me the spirit vein map, this seat has believed you without a doubt. When have I ever doubted you? Taoist Master Heavenly Secret only smiled and didn't expose him. He solemnly said, Sect Master, regarding the matter of destroying the 9 dragon spirit vein, the time isn't ripe yet. We still need to consider it at length. The time isn't ripe yet? The Tianjin Sect Master raised his eyebrows and asked with a grave expression, May I ask Taoist Master, when is the best time? Taoist Master Heavenly Secret pretended to pinch his fingers and raise his head to look at the sky, making a gesture of deducing the heavenly cycle and surveying the mysteries of heaven. The Tianjin Sect Master and Guest Elder Huang Fu both secretly curled their lips and wanted to roll their eyes, but on the surface, their faces were full of expectation. A moment later, Taoist Master Heavenly Secret revealed a confident smile and leisurely said, Sect Master, this seat has just deduced the heavenly cycle and peeked into the mysteries of heaven. When the Sky Pillar Sect breaks the protective formation of the Dragon Mountain tomb, it will be the best time for us to destroy the 9 dragon spirit vein and destroy the Sky Pillar Sect in one fell swoop. Hearing this, the Tianjin sect master and guest elder Huang Fu both frowned, somewhat doubtful and in disbelief. Not long after Taoist master Heavenly Secret joined the Tianjin sect, the Tianjin sect master told him about the Dragon Mountain tomb. Hearing Taoist master Heavenly Secret mention the Dragon Mountain tomb, the Tianjin sect master wasn't surprised. His expression was grave as he worriedly asked, "The protective formation of the Dragon Mountain tomb is a top-notch heaven essence formation. The Sky Pillar sect has already discovered the tomb for 2 months, but they still haven't made any moves. According to this seat's estimates, with the Sky Pillar sect's strength and ability, they won't be able to break that formation in a short period of time, right? In that case, won't we have to wait for a long time, or even many years?" Taoist master Heavenly Secret flung the horsetail whisk in his hand and revealed an unfathomable smile. "Sect master, you're underestimating the Sky Pillar sect too much. You must believe in this seat. It absolutely won't take that long." Chapter 3:12. In a dark secret room on the towering sky peak. This secret room was the place where Chu Tianshang usually cultivated. Not only were there important secrets hidden here, but the layout of the room was also very majestic. The ground was carved with mountains and rivers, and the ceiling was carved with the sun, moon, and stars, forming a large array that encompassed heaven and earth. Chu Tianxing sat on a large jade chair, looking at Ji Tianxing with a serious expression. "Tianxing, since you've entered the 9-Dragon Cave, you should have seen the array platform and the 9 dragon pillars, right?" Ji Tianxing nodded and said with a serious expression, "Master, if I'm not wrong, the array platform and the 9 dragon pillars should be related to our sect's protective array, right?" "That's right." Chu Tianxing nodded slightly and said in a serious tone, 8,000 years ago, our sect's founder moved the 9 mountains here to form the 9 dragon spiritual pulse array to suppress the unparalleled demon and founded the Towering Sky sect. The 9 dragon spiritual pulse is the most important foundation of our sect. Not only does it suppress the unparalleled demon, but it also carries the fate and lifeline of our sect for 1,000 years. The array platform and the 9 dragon pillars in the 9 dragon cave are auxiliary arrays of the 9 dragon spiritual pulse. The 9 dragon pillars represent the 9 mountains of our sect. Once the 9 dragon pillars and the array platform are destroyed, the 9 dragon spiritual pulse will be damaged. The consequences will be unimaginable. Ji Tianxing had long expected the situation to be serious, but he didn't expect it to be this serious. He frowned and asked with some concern, "Master, what do you plan to do?" Chu Tianxing raised his eyebrows and said in a low voice, "The 9 dragon cave is very important. It's related to the lifeline of our sect. Of course, I will send experts to guard it." Ji Tianxing was silent for a moment, then asked, "Master, don't you want to investigate who is so bold as to sneak into our sect to spy on our secrets?" Chu Tianxing shook his head, his eyes flashing with a cold light. He said in a cold voice, "There's no need to investigate. I've already guessed the other party's identity. In the entire Star Ancient Realm, besides that sect, who would dare to provoke our sect so unscrupulously?" Hearing this, Ji Tianxing immediately understood Chu Tianxing's meaning and guessed the other party's identity. Chu Tianxing said with a serious expression, "Tianxing, you've only been in the sect for a few months. Although it's glorious and dazzling, it's also caused you a lot of trouble. Have you ever wondered why the sect thinks so highly of you?" Ji Tianxing frowned as a thought flashed through his mind. Could there be another reason? "What secret does Master want to tell me?" "Because I can reactivate the 9 dragon demon trapping array." Ji Tianxing frowned, trying to figure out the meaning of this word. Everyone thought that Ji Ling was the person the Sky-bearing sect was looking for. After Ji Ling's death, the truth was revealed. It turned out that he was the person the Sky-bearing sect was looking for. He had always thought that the Sky-bearing sect was looking for him because of his profound sword bloodline. But Chu Tianxing told him that he was the person who defied fate. What did that mean? "Follow Master." Chu Tianxing didn't immediately explain. He turned and walked to the center of the room, arriving in front of a stone table. There was an ancient black tortoise shell on the stone table. It emitted an ancient and mysterious aura. Chu Tianxing pressed his palm on the tortoise shell and released a majestic true origin. He used a secret technique of the profound Tao. The tortoise shell immediately lit up with a dazzling brilliance. Dense dots of light and silver lines appeared and moved slightly. Ji Tianxing stood beside the stone table and carefully observed the changes on the tortoise shell. He could see that the dense dots of light represented the stars in the sky, and the silver lines were the veins of the formation. Soon, the dots of light and silver lines on the tortoise shell stopped moving. Chu Tianxing pointed at the most dazzling star in the sky and said to Ji Tianxing with a solemn expression, "Tianxing, this treasure is one of the sect's most important treasures, the fated star map. The constellation shown in the fated star map foretells your fate. And the most dazzling star in the sky is your fated star. Our sect's greatest worry and enemy is the unparalleled demon suppressed under Scarlet Firmament Peak. And you are that unparalleled demon's nemesis." Ji Tianxing stared at the fated star map in a daze. He didn't know what to say for a while. The unparalleled demon was a giant of the demonic Tao 1,000 years ago. He was a super expert that could destroy the entire heavenly stellar region. The sky-bearing sect that had existed for 1,000 years feared the unparalleled demon like a tiger and deeply feared him. He was a weakling in the profound understanding realm. Compared to the unparalleled demon, the difference was like heaven and earth. But Chu Tianxing showed him the fated star map and told him that he was the unparalleled demon's nemesis. How could he believe this? How could he not be shocked? The secret room quieted down. Both master and disciple were silent. After a long time, Ji Tianxing finally calmed down. He raised his head and looked at Chu Tianxing. His voice was solemn as he asked, "Master, what do you want me to do?" Chu Tianxing shook his head and said in a heavy tone, "You don't need to do anything. Just wait and see." However, waiting and seeing doesn't mean letting nature take its course. You must understand the mission and responsibility on your shoulders. You can't relax for even a moment. You must cultivate with all your strength and strive to become stronger. Ji Tianxing knew that with his current strength, he didn't have the qualifications to deal with the unparalleled demon. Even if he was anxious, it would be useless. The only thing he could do was to continuously increase his strength and strive to become stronger. "Master, don't worry. I will cultivate diligently and strive to increase my strength." Chu Tianxing nodded with a worried expression. He said in a heavy tone, "Now, someone has infiltrated the Nine-Dragon Cave to investigate the secrets of the Nine-Dragon spiritual pulse. They have already begun to act. I can't help but worry. If they destroy the Nine-Dragon spiritual pulse, not only will the foundation of our sect collapse, but even the unparalleled demon under the Red Cloud Peak will break the seal. At that time, a great disaster will befall us. The ancient star realm and the entire heavenly stellar region will be plunged into misery and suffering. Tianxing, if that day really comes, I will need you to step forward and save our sect and the ancient star realm from suffering. Save the people of the heavenly stellar region. Of course, the sect and I will do our best to guard against the enemy. We will not let that day come too early." Chapter 313. Chu Tianxing then told Ji Tianxing some of the sect's secrets. This gave Ji Tianxing a deeper understanding of the Sky Pillar sect's situation. He understood that his status had only been recognized by everyone after the Heaven List tournament. Before this, he only had the title of the sect master's disciple and was not regarded as a true elite disciple. But it was different now. He had won 3 matches in a row in the Heaven List tournament and bravely took second place on the Heaven List, proving his strength to everyone. He had become a true core disciple and had the same status as Yun Yao. Only then was he qualified to know these secrets. At the same time, Ji Tianxing also deeply understood a principle. The greater the power, the heavier the responsibility. When he was regarded highly by the sect master and the Sky Pillar sect and stood side by side with Yun Yao, he had to bear the corresponding responsibility. After an hour, Ji Tianxing bid farewell to Chu Tianxing and left the secret room. When he left the Sky Pillar Hall and returned to Tianxing Courtyard, it was a scorching afternoon. The door to Tianxing Courtyard was wide open, and the 2 servant disciples were nowhere to be seen. Maid Xiao Shuang was standing at the door of the living room with an anxious expression, looking out from time to time. Seeing that Ji Tianxing had returned, Maid Xiao Shuang revealed a relieved expression and quickly came forward to report the news. "Senior brother Ji, you're finally back." Ji Tianxing glanced at her and asked, "What happened?" Xiao Shuang quickly replied, "Senior brother Ji, there's a senior brother called Xueqi who said that he has an urgent matter to discuss with you. He's been waiting in the living room for an hour. You should quickly go and take a look." Xueqi. Ji Tianxing frowned and thought for a moment before remembering that this person was a disciple of the Spirit Medicine Hall. Back then, He had persuaded Xueqi to become a disciple of the Spirit Medicine Hall's elder. Thinking of this, he could not help but have a thought. What urgent matter could he have to look for me for? Could it be related to Ku? When he walked into the living room, he saw Xueqi in a white robe pacing back and forth in the living room. He looked restless and anxious. Suddenly, he saw Ji Tianqing enter the living room. Xueqi hurriedly walked up to him and cupped his hands in greeting. Greetings, Senior Marshal Brother Ji. Ji Tianqing cupped his hands in return and said, Junior Marshal Brother Su, don't be impatient. If you have anything to say, please sit down and talk. Xueqi shook his head and said with a solemn expression, Senior Brother Ji, this is an urgent matter. I won't be sitting. I came to Tianqing Courtyard to disturb you because I have an urgent matter. Junior sister Ji Ku. Something happened to her. Ji Tianqing's body trembled and his eyes were filled with worry. He hurriedly asked, What's wrong with Ku? What happened? Xueqi looked outside the courtyard and said in a low voice, Senior Marshal Brother Ji, come with me to the Spirit Medicine Hall to see her. We'll talk on the way. Ji Tianqing was worried about Xueqi's safety and naturally nodded in agreement. He followed Xueqi out of Tianqing Courtyard and hurried to the Spirit Medicine Hall. On the way, Xueqi explained to him, ever since junior sister Xueqi entered the Spirit Medicine Hall, she has been safe and sound for the past 2 months. She is naturally intelligent, lively, and cute. Her progress in the art of alchemy is very fast. She is also doted on by her fellow apprentices. But for some reason since last night, junior sister Xueqi has been in a daze and looked like she was in pain. At noon today, when she was refining medicine in the alchemy room, she fainted on the spot. After the incident, the medicine elder hurried over to check on the situation and found that junior sister Xueqi's condition was very bad. Ji Tianqing's expression became grave and he asked worriedly, Why did Ka faint? Didn't the medicine elder find out the reason? Xueqi was silent for a moment before he shook his head and said, Perhaps the medicine elder knows the reason, but he didn't tell us. We can't find any clues. Junior sister Xueqi's consciousness has been muddled and her true essence is in chaos. She could die at any time. Originally, the medicine elder told us not to spread this matter, and that he would think of a way to deal with it and save junior sister Xueqi. But junior sister Xueqi kept calling your name even when she was unconscious. I saw that junior sister Xueqi was still thinking about senior brother Ji even when she was unconscious. I couldn't bear it and came to Tianqing Courtyard to find you. After listening to Xueqi's explanation, Ji Tianqing said in a solemn tone, Junior brother Su, thank you for telling me this. It's my duty, Xueqi replied. Not long after, the two of them arrived at the Spirit Medicine Hall. Xueqi led Ji Tianqing through several buildings and entered a palace in the depths of the Spirit Medicine Hall. They came to the door of a secret room. 2 Spirit Medicine Hall deacons were guarding the door of the secret room. Seeing Xueqi and Ji Tianqing arrive, the 2 black-robed deacons hurriedly stopped them and said in a dignified voice, This is a restricted area of the Spirit Medicine Hall. Leave quickly and don't disturb us. Xueqi cupped his hands and bowed, then retreated to the side and stood still. Ji Tianqing took out the atlas badge and explained, I'm Ji Tianqing, Xueqi's elder brother. Something happened to her and I have to go in and visit her. The 2 black-robed deacons let them go and opened the door of the secret room. Ji Tianqing stepped through the door of the secret room and saw that there were many large arrays set up in this spacious secret room with a radius of 100 meters. There were also several pill furnaces and medicine cabinets for storing medicinal herbs. He could see that this secret room should be the place where the medicine elder usually cultivated and refined pills. On a platform in the middle of the secret chamber, there was a millstone-sized, dark green millennium-old spiritual jade. Xueqi, dressed in a green robe, was lying on the 1,000-year-old spirit jade in a coma. Her face was sometimes as pale as snow and sometimes as pale as gold paper. Her body was constantly emitting wisps of white smoke, overflowing with a violent and domineering power. The spirit jade had absorbed the power of several large arrays and was emitting a dense green light. It was as if a layer of thick fog was shrouding her, constantly injecting her with a majestic aura of life. Beside the 1,000-year-old spirit jade, the amiable-looking medicine elder was waving his hand with a worried expression, releasing true essence brilliance to control 2 arrays. Ji Tianqing could tell that the medicine elder was controlling the arrays with the help of the 1,000-year-old spirit jade's power, seemingly suppressing the violent power overflowing from Xueqi's body. Seeing this scene, he did not disturb the medicine elder. He walked to the side of the array and silently sized up Xueqi, observing her situation. After 7 minutes, the wisps of white smoke overflowing from Xueqi's body were finally suppressed. Only then did the medicine elder stop. He turned his head to look at Ji Tianqing and asked with a frown, "Ji Tianqing? Why are you here?" Ji Tianqing cupped his hands in greeting and explained, "Medicine elder, I heard from junior brother Xueqi that something happened to Ku, so I came to visit." "Medicine elder, please tell me, why did Ku suddenly fall into a coma? How is her condition?" The medicine elder's expression became more and more solemn as he said in a heavy tone, "Since you are so concerned about Xueqi, I will not hide it from you." Chapter 3:14. Crimson Star Bloodline. Hearing these words, Ji Tianqing immediately raised his eyebrows, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. He was now an array master and had studied the massive heavenly cycle-stellar array, so he knew many secrets that only the strong knew. The Crimson Star referred to the Crimson Pole Star, one of the 36 Big Dipper stars and ranked third. The Crimson Star bloodline was obviously related to the Big Dipper star. Even if Ji Tianqing had never heard of this bloodline, he could guess that it must be an extremely rare bloodline. In the Tianxian continent, only martial artists with outstanding talent could awaken the bloodline. Martial artists with special bloodlines were more outstanding than ordinary martial artists, and their martial arts achievements were also higher. Of course, bloodlines were also divided into strong and weak ones. The most common bloodline was the origin grade bloodline, the more advanced ones were the black grade bloodline, and the best ones were the heavenly grade bloodline. Generally speaking, martial artists with the black grade bloodline were extremely rare in the secular kingdoms. Just like in the past, Ji Tianqing had the black grade bloodline and could become the top martial artist in the Royal Azure Kingdom. As for the heavenly grade bloodline, it was almost impossible for it to appear in the secular kingdoms. Only those major forces and sects that were above the kingdoms could give birth to such outstanding bloodlines. For example, Yun Yao's celestial spirit's sacred constitution was one of the heavenly grade bloodlines. Ji Tianqing frowned and asked doubtfully, "Medicine elder, what is the grade of the Crimson Star bloodline? Is it the heavenly grade bloodline?" The medicine elder nodded and said with a serious expression, "Yes." Ji Tianqing was even more puzzled and asked, "Medicine elder, when a martial artist awakens the bloodline, their talent will improve by leaps and bounds and their strength will increase exponentially. Xueqi awakened the heavenly grade bloodline. How did this happen? Why is she in a coma and in critical condition?" The medicine elder looked at him deeply and sighed before explaining, "This matter is very complicated and it's a long story. There were 2 reasons why I took a fancy to Xueqi and insisted on taking her as my disciple. Firstly, when this old man was roaming the Heavenly Star region in the early years, I had a friendship with the Royal Azure Dynasty's emperor. Xueqi joining the Sky Pillar sect as a disciple was also instructed by the Royal Azure Dynasty emperor. Not long after Xueqi joined the Sky Pillar sect, the emperor of the Royal Azure Dynasty sent me a letter asking me to take care of her and help her awaken the mysterious bloodline in her body. Secondly, the bloodline hidden within Xueqi's body is extremely mysterious. Before this, neither the Royal Azure Dynasty emperor nor I could tell what kind of bloodline she possesses. Because of this, I decided to take her as my disciple and help her awaken her mysterious bloodline." Ji Tianqing nodded. Only then did he come to a realization. He had always believed that there was no such thing as love or hatred for no reason in this world. If it were not for the friendship between the Royal Azure Dynasty emperor and the medicine elder, and the mysterious bloodline in Xueqi's body, why would the medicine elder accept her as his disciple after just a few meetings? At this moment, the medicine elder continued, "Ever since Xueqi became my disciple, I've been thinking of ways to help her awaken her bloodline for the past 2 months. Just the day before yesterday, I finally succeeded in helping Xueqi awaken her mysterious bloodline. When I found out that the bloodline she awakened was the top of the heavenly red star bloodline, I was so excited and relieved. However, after Xueqi awakened the red star bloodline, not only did her strength not skyrocket, she was also constantly in danger. The inner yuan in her body was in a mess and her power went berserk. She almost lost her life because of it. After a careful examination, I found out that there was an extremely mysterious and domineering power sealed within her body. That was not the inner yuan of a human but the power of a foreign race. It was this mysterious power that almost cost her her life." When he heard this, Ji Tianqing's face was filled with astonishment and he quickly asked, the power of a foreign race. Xueqi is clearly a human. How could there be the power of a foreign race in her body? The medicine elder stroked his beard and said meaningfully, the power of a foreign race is sealed within her soul. It should have been there since birth and it could very well be related to her background. Ji Tianqing, since you're Jika's elder brother and are close childhood friends with her, you should know something about her background, right? Ji Tianqing thought for a moment and nodded. He had met Xueqi when he was 8 years old and they became best friends. He knew that Xueqi only had her imperial father since she was young and did not have a mother. She was the most lonely princess in the palace. No one knew who Xueqi's birth mother was and it was strictly forbidden in the palace to talk about Xueqi's background or they would be severely punished. The heirs of the imperial family distanced themselves from her and the concubines in the harem bullied her. Although the emperor of the royal Azure dynasty doted on her, he was busy with political affairs and had no time to accompany her. It was because of this that Xueqi relied on him and trusted him so much and had a deep relationship with him. When he thought of this, Ji Tianqing said in a serious tone, Medicine Elder, there is indeed something strange about Xueqi's background. I'm afraid only the emperor of the royal Azure dynasty knows the truth about her background. However, now is not the time to delve into this matter. How should we deal with the power of a foreign race in Xueqi's body? Do you have any good ideas? The medicine elder frowned and pondered for a moment before saying in a low voice, the power of a foreign race is very mysterious and violent. It's different from the energy of our human race. I can't do anything about it. Moreover, the power is sealed within Xueqi's soul and no one can touch it. She can only rely on herself to refine the power. I've thought about it for a long time and I've come up with an excellent idea. Ji Tianqing's eyes lit up and he asked expectantly, what is it? The medicine elder said in a serious tone, Xueqi's current strength is too weak. She can't refine the power of a foreign race sealed within her soul. If she wants to increase her strength quickly, she can only rely on her bloodline talent. The heavenly red star bloodline that she awakened corresponds to the red star of the 36 Big Dipper stars. If she sleeps in the jade soul coffin and places it at the top of the 7 stars pagoda, she can absorb the power of the Big Dipper stars and quickly increase the power of her red star bloodline. When her red star bloodline is strong enough, she can borrow the power of the Big Dipper stars to refine the power of the foreign race sealed within her soul. When that time comes, not only will she be able to turn danger into safety, she will also be able to master the mysterious and powerful power of a foreign race. Her strength will definitely increase exponentially. Ji Tianqing frowned in confusion. Jade Soul Coffin? 7 Stars Pagoda? Medicine Elder, where are these 2 treasures? How can I get them? The medicine elder stroked his beard and said calmly, the Jade Soul Coffin is a treasure of our sect. It has all kinds of incredible effects. This item is in the hands of the sect master. You can ask the sect master to lend it to you. As for the 7 Stars Pagoda, it is a wonderful treasure land in the ancient star realm. It is located 500 miles south of the Star Terrace. Chapter 3:15. Seeing that Ji Tianqing didn't know much about the 7 Stars Pagoda, the medicine elder explained it to him in detail. The 7 Stars Pagoda was actually a secret land. After the 8 major sects found this secret land, they all wanted to take it for themselves, so that their disciples could gain experience and improve their strength. After many disputes and negotiations, the 8 major sects reached an agreement to jointly set up a super array to protect the secret land and named it the 7 Stars Pagoda. The 7 Stars Pagoda had 7 floors. From the first floor to the 6th floor, there were various dangers and tests in each floor. Only by passing the tests could one enter the higher floor. The 7th floor was an excellent holy land for cultivation, with all kinds of incredible effects. The 8 major sects had set a rule that the 7 Stars Pagoda would only open once a year. Each sect had a token, which was equivalent to the key to enter the 7 Stars Pagoda. It could only be used by one disciple. The disciples of each sect who entered the 7 Stars Pagoda had to rely on their own ability to pass the levels. Whoever could reach the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda would get great benefits. Hearing this, Ji Tianqing opened his mouth and asked, Medicine Elder, may I ask where our sect's token is? The medicine elder quickly replied, naturally, it's in Yun Yao's hands. In the past few years, every time the 7 Stars Pagoda opened, she would represent our sect to pass the levels. None of the disciples of other sects could reach the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda. Only our sect's Yun Yao could do it. In the past, our sect also sent Chen Su and Tang Yilua, but they both failed on the 5th floor and failed to reach the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda. Since then, our sect has kept the token to enter the 7 Stars Pagoda with Yun Yao. She knows the situation of the 7 Stars Pagoda better. If you want to know more, you can go to her. Ji Tianxing nodded to show that he understood and bowed to the medicine elder to thank him. Then the medicine elder reminded him, there are still 8 days before the 7 Stars Pagoda opens. Jika's condition is still unstable, so I have to help her recuperate for a few days. If you get the Jade Soul Coffin and the key to enter the 7 Stars Pagoda, wait patiently for a few days and prepare to enter the 7 Stars Pagoda in advance. After this old man has helped Jika recuperate, I'll send someone to inform you. At that time, I'll put her into the Jade Soul Coffin. Thank you very much, Medicine Elder. Ji Tianxing thanked him and then left. After leaving the Spirit Medicine Hall, he went straight to the White Cloud Hall on the Red Cloud Peak. Baiyun Hall was Yun Yao's residence. When he rushed to the White Cloud Hall, Yun Yao was reading ancient books in the study. Hearing his footsteps, Yun Yao put down the ancient book in her hand, turned to look at him, and greeted, Junior brother Tianxing, are you looking for me? Ji Tianxing nodded and said, Eldest senior sister, I came to find you to ask about the 7 Stars Pagoda. 7 Stars Pagoda? Yun Yao frowned and thought for a moment. Then she said in surprise, the 7 Stars Pagoda will open in a few days. Do you want to challenge the 7 Stars Pagoda? Yes. Ji Tianxing thought for a moment and nodded. I want to save a good friend, so I need to borrow the power of the 7 Stars Pagoda. Yun Yao frowned slightly and said in a serious tone, although the 7 Stars Pagoda is a secret land with great opportunities, it's also very dangerous. Junior brother Tianxing, with your current strength, I'm afraid it'll be difficult for you to break through. Ji Tianxing certainly understood that Yun Yao was not exaggerating. She was sincerely advising him. However, he said firmly, eldest senior sister, in order to save a friend, I have to break through. Yun Yao frowned and looked at him with deep eyes. After hesitating for a moment, she took out a silver token from her interspatial ring and handed it to him. This is the token to enter the 7 Stars Pagoda. Every sect only has one. When the 7 Stars Pagoda opens, only one disciple from each sect can enter. The first 3 levels of the 7 Stars Pagoda are relatively simple. Most of the elite disciples of each sect can pass through them. However, the 4th to 6th levels are extremely difficult and dangerous. Almost everyone can't pass these 3 levels. Originally, I didn't plan to enter the 7 Stars Pagoda this year. I wanted to give this opportunity to junior brother Yan and let him go to the 7 Stars Pagoda to hone himself. Since you want to go, it's the same for me to give you the token. After that, she introduced the dangers of each level to Ji Tianxing and explained the mysteries of the 7th level. Ji Tianxing listened carefully and memorized every word she said. After Yun Yao finished speaking, he put away the token to enter the 7 Stars Pagoda and thanked Yun Yao. Breaking through the 7 Stars Pagoda and saving Jiku must be done by him. He did not dare to expect Yun Yao to help him save Jiku. After all, Yun Yao and Jiku were not related. Yun Yao was willing to give him the key to enter the 7 Stars Pagoda, which was already extremely benevolent and made him grateful. After leaving the White Cloud Hall, Ji Tianxing rushed to the Sky Raising Hall and asked to see his master, Chu Tiansheng. Chu Tiansheng was cultivating in the secret chamber. When he heard that he came to visit, he asked the black-robed god to lead him into the secret chamber. Tianxing, why are you looking for master? Chu Tianxing sat cross-legged in the array formation in the secret chamber and asked with a calm expression. Ji Tianxing walked in front of him and stood still. He bowed and said, Greetings, master. This disciple is here to ask master for a favor. I have a close friend who is a disciple of the Spiritual Medicine Hall's elder. She is in danger and has a difficult problem to solve. The medicine elder told me that if I want to save her, I can only let her sleep in the Jade Soul Coffin at the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda and use the power of the stars to save her. So, this disciple boldly wants to borrow the Jade Soul Coffin from master. I hope master can help me. After listening to these words, Chu Tianxing showed a surprised look and asked, Tianxing, you want to go to the 7 Stars Pagoda? The 7th floor of the 7 Stars Pagoda is full of dangers and dangers. The slightest carelessness will cost you your life. Ji Tianxing cupped his fists and said with a firm expression, Master, This disciple must take the risk in order to save her. Chu Tianxing frowned and weighed the pros and cons for a moment before saying in a solemn tone, "Since you insist on going, Master will not stop you. The 7 Stars Pagoda is very dangerous. If you go there, you can also use it to temper yourself and improve your strength. Master can lend you the Jade Soul Coffin, but this thing is one of the most precious treasures of our sect. It is very rare and precious. You must take good care of it and place it properly. It cannot be lost." When Ji Tianxing saw him nod in agreement, he immediately said gratefully, "Thank you, Master. This disciple will follow Master's orders and will not let the Jade Soul Coffin be damaged." Chu Tianxing nodded and slowly extended his left palm. A silver brilliance appeared in his palm and a thumb-sized white jade box immediately appeared. This thumb-sized white jade box had a rectangular shape and was carved into the shape of a lifelike coffin. It was the Sky Pillar sect's most precious treasure, the Jade Soul Coffin. If one wanted to use the Jade Soul Coffin, they needed to use a special spell to open the formation on the Jade Soul Coffin. Only then could it become a real coffin. After Ji Tianxing accepted the Jade Soul Coffin, Chu Tianxing taught him a set of mysterious spells to use the Jade Soul Coffin. Ji Tianxing listened attentively and remembered every word Chu Tianxing said. After an hour, he had successfully mastered the spell to open and use the Jade Soul Coffin. Chu Tianxing took out 2 talismans and a fist-sized silver ball and gave them to him. "Tianxing, this time you will be going to the 7 Stars Pagoda. It will be very dangerous. You may even encounter life-threatening danger." Chapter 316. The Jade Soul Coffin and the key to enter the 7 Stars Pagoda were both in his hands. What Ji Tianxing needed to do next was to wait and prepare. After returning to the Tianxing courtyard, he did not waste any time. He quickly entered the secret chamber to practice and improve his strength. When the 7 Stars Pagoda opened, he would enter the 7 Stars Pagoda. At that time, he would not only have to face all kinds of dangers and tests, but also the elite disciples of each sect. He had to improve his strength as much as possible. After entering the 7 Stars Pagoda, he was bound to pass all the tests and reach the top. In order to save Ji Ku, he had to succeed. He could not fail. Soon after, Ji Tianxing held his breath and focused his mind, entering a focused state of cultivation. Now that he had reached LV5 of the mystic comprehending realm, one of the apertures in the 5th sword vein had been refined. He used his own gold genuine essence and the power of the red flame genuine fire to refine the 2nd aperture. This process was very slow. As his strength became stronger, the speed of his strength improvement would inevitably become slower. In the Tianjin sect, on the Divine Sword Peak. In a dimly lit secret chamber full of spiritual qi, the Tianjin sect master was sitting on a big jade chair. In front of him stood a young man in a white robe with a dignified appearance. This young man was about 25 or 26 years old. He was tall and burly, handsome, and dignified. He exuded confidence and arrogance. This man was the chief disciple of the Tianjin sect, Shi Wenyu. Shi Wenyu bowed to the sect master of the Heavenly Sword sect and asked respectfully, "Master, do you have any instructions for summoning this disciple?" The Tianjin sect master nodded slightly and asked, "Wenyu, the 7 Stars Pagoda will open in a few days. Are you ready?" Shi Wenyu smiled confidently and quickly cupped his hands. "Master, although I failed every time I entered the 7 Stars Pagoda, my swordsmanship has made a breakthrough this year. My strength has also increased by 2 levels to LV9 of the mystic comprehending realm. I am confident that I can enter the 7th level and become the 2nd person after Yun Yao to reach the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda." Seeing how confident Shi Wenyu was, the Tianjin sect master smiled with relief. He nodded and said encouragingly, "Wenyu, it's good that you're so confident. I also hope that you can win this honor and show the other sects the strength of the Tianjin sect." Shi Wenyu cupped his fists and said confidently, "Disciple will do his best and not disappoint master." Very good." The Tianjin sect master nodded with satisfaction and said in a serious tone, "However, I summoned you here today because I have a more important task for you." Shi Wenyu saw his solemn expression and understood the importance of this matter. He said seriously, "Master, please enlighten me." The Tianjin sect master said in a low voice, "At the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda, there are many heavenly treasures. One of them is called the Soul Crystal. This item is very important to us and is even related to the rise of our sect. After you enter the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda, You must obtain this treasure and bring it back. After listening to the Tianjin sect master's instructions, Xueqi suddenly frowned and asked doubtfully, Master, since the soul crystal is so precious, Yun Yao will definitely snatch it from me. Moreover, she has entered the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda many times. Could it be that she has already taken the soul crystal? The Tianjin sect master sneered and said in a firm tone, Of course not. Yun Yao definitely doesn't have the guts to take the soul crystal. The soul crystal is located in the 7 stars array. Not only is it hidden very well, but it is also the core of the 7 stars array. Once you take the soul crystal, the 7 stars array will collapse, and the 7 stars pagoda will be implicated and even collapse. Xueqi's face was full of surprise. He didn't expect the Tianjin sect master to give him such a shocking task. The Tianjin sect master continued, you don't have to worry about the consequences of doing this. Just follow my orders. After you take the soul crystal and the 7 stars pagoda collapses and is destroyed, you can try to push the blame to Yun Yao. In the past few years, except for Yun Yao, no one has been able to reach the 7th floor. If you frame her with this matter, all the major sects will believe it without a doubt. Xueqi nodded solemnly and cupped his fists. I understand. I will follow Master's orders. Well, very good. You may leave. The Tianjin sect master nodded with satisfaction. Xueqi bowed and left the secret chamber. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. Ji Tianqing had been cultivating in seclusion in the secret chamber for 7 days. Finally, he had refined 2 more acupoints and his strength had improved a lot. In the evening, he ended his cultivation and walked out of the secret chamber. Not long after he returned to his room, his maid Xiao Shuang came to report the news. Senior brother Ji, the senior brother named Su Qin, came to visit again at noon today. He asked Xiao Shuang to tell you that everything is ready. As soon as Ji Tianqing heard this, he understood that the medicine elder was definitely prepared. He quickly left the Tianqing courtyard and rushed to the spiritual herbal hall to find the medicine elder. When he met the medicine elder, he was still in the secret chamber. Ji Ku was still lying unconscious on the Millennium Spirit Jade. Her body was surrounded by a pale blue brilliance, and her face was calm and serene. Even though she was unconscious and her consciousness was fuzzy, she was still murmuring unconsciously. Every once in a while she would call out, Brother Tianqing. Seeing her like this, Ji Tianqing was full of tenderness and worry. He secretly made up his mind to help her solve the disaster in front of her. The medicine elder's face was full of fatigue, but there was a touch of relief in his eyes. Tianqing, this old man has helped Ji Ku recuperate her body and temporarily suppress the alien power sealed in her soul. Later, we will put Ji Ku into the jade soul coffin. Tomorrow morning, you can set off for the 7 Stars Pagoda. Thank you, medicine elder. I have troubled you. Ji Tianqing thanked him sincerely. The medicine elder waved his hand and said with a bitter smile, Why are you thanking this old man? This old man is Ji Ku's master. This is what I should do. Ji Tianqing did not say anything more. He circulated his true essence and cast a special spell to bring out the jade soul coffin. Swoosh! A light flashed in his palm, and a jade box the size of a thumb appeared. He cast a spell to make the jade box bigger. Soon, it became a 5-meter-long and 3-meter-wide spirit jade coffin. The carvings on the coffin were vivid and lifelike. The entire coffin exuded a vast and majestic spirit qi. Obviously, its effects were extraordinary. Under the medicine elder's guidance, Ji Tianqing slowly lifted Ji Ku up. His movements were gentle as he carefully placed her into the jade soul coffin. Ji Ku was sleeping in the jade soul coffin. The coffin constantly released an invisible spirit qi that lingered around her body, protecting her closely. After that, Ji Tianqing cast a special spell to shrink the huge coffin into a jade box the size of a thumb and put it back into his spatial ring. Chapter 317. The next morning, Ji Tianqing rode on Qianyu and left the Sky Pillar sect. Facing the rising sun, Qianyu flew towards the center of the Star Ancient Realm. It flew for half a day and arrived at the bottom of the 7 Stars Pagoda after 12 hours. It was already evening, and night was about to fall. Qianyu landed on a towering mountain peak. In the center of the mountain peak stood a towering pagoda that was as huge as a mountain peak. It was an octagonal pagoda that was bronze in color. Its bottom was connected to the mountain peak and its top was connected to the sky. It exuded an incomparably majestic aura. The bronze pagoda was divided into 7 floors, each of which was more than 300 meters tall. The top 2 floors were shrouded in clouds and mist, making it difficult to see clearly. Ji Tianxing looked up for a moment and saw the pagoda's appearance. The pagoda had 8 corners that were octagonal in shape. It looked magnificent, vast, and imposing. There was a huge copper lamp at each corner, and the lamps were engraved with lifelike divine dragons and firebirds. The body of the pagoda was ancient and rough, with many mysterious patterns carved on it. There were also some special symbols. On the first floor of the pagoda, there was a black door that was 100 meters tall. This door was tightly shut and flickered with a faint 5-colored brilliance. It was obviously the power of a formation. In addition, there was a narrow ladder on the side of the pagoda that led directly to the 4th floor. There was also a door on the 4th floor of the pagoda that was the same size as the door on the 1st floor. It was simple and unadorned. These 2 doors were the only entrances to the pagoda. This is the legendary 7 Stars Pagoda? Ji Tianxing looked at it for a moment and could not help but whisper. This 7 Stars Pagoda was not man-made and was not controlled by the 8 great sections. Legend had it that this mysterious and unadorned 7 Stars Pagoda was not an ordinary thing, but a divine object that fell from the sky. In the distant ancient times, this 7 Stars Pagoda fell from the sky like a meteor and fell into the star-ancient realm. After the pagoda landed, it smashed into the depths of the earth and hid in the mountains. No one knew about it. After thousands of years of slow recovery and growth, the pagoda gradually recovered its power and emerged from the depths of the earth. About 10 years ago, this 7 Stars Pagoda appeared from the top of the mountain, as if it had appeared out of thin air overnight. Later on, several sex experts accidentally discovered the 7 Stars Pagoda. When they entered the 7-star pagoda with doubts, they found that there was another world inside the pagoda. Furthermore, the 7 floors of the pagoda represented the 7 worlds. They did not disturb each other but were connected to each other. Every level contained abundant mineral resources and natural treasures. Moreover, they were all ownerless and could be plucked at will. The closer the world was to the top of the tower, the richer the treasures and resources it contained. Thus, the powerhouses of the various sects began to crazily plunder the 7-star pagoda for resources. After the news spread, all the major sects rushed over and joined in the plundering and pillaging operation. However, conflicts soon broke out between the various sects, which led to one battle after another. In the end, in order to prevent the 8 great sects from killing each other and causing a chaotic war, the experts of the various sects had no choice but to sit down and discuss. After many discussions and coordination, the 8 great sects finally decided to jointly control the 7 Stars Pagoda and set up the Tianyuan Grand Array to protect the pagoda. The 7 Stars Pagoda would open once a year. Each sect could only send one disciple into the pagoda to climb to a higher level and search for more precious resources and treasures. Unfortunately, in recent years, except for Yun Yao who had climbed to the 7th floor of the 7 Stars Pagoda, none of the other sect's disciples had been able to enter the 7th floor. Ji Tianxing looked at the 7 Stars Pagoda for a while and saw that several young martial artists had gathered in the open space below the pagoda, so he walked over. The open space with a radius of 100 meters was paved with black stone slabs, and there was a 10-meter-tall array platform in the middle. This was obviously built by the people of the 8 great sects, and the array in the array platform was the key to opening the 7 Stars Pagoda. When Ji Tianxing came to the open space, several young martial artists in the field also turned their heads to look at him. When those people saw his appearance, they suddenly showed surprised and puzzled expressions and whispered to each other, "Hey! Isn't this guy a disciple of the Sky Pillar sect? Strange, the Sky Pillar sect's Yun Yao didn't come? They actually sent him to challenge the 7 Stars Pagoda? I know this guy. I saw him on the star platform during the 8th Sect Council. He's the disciple of the Sky Pillar sect's sect master. I think his name is Ji Tianxing. Yes, I remember that this guy's strength is very weak. It seems that he hasn't become an elite disciple yet, right?" These young martial artists were all chief disciples of their respective sections. They had seen Ji Tianxing at the 8th Sect Council before. Everyone's impression of him was still at that time. They didn't know that he had defeated Chen Su and Tang Yilua in the Heavenless tournament and became the second genius of the Sky Pillar sect. Among them, there was a beautiful woman with a slim figure, a dignified face, and an elegant temperament. She was the chief disciple of the Heart Moon sect, Feng Min. The young man standing beside her was the chief disciple of the Six Unity sect, Wu Yu. He had previously worked with Feng Min and Ji Tianxing to destroy the demon cave. There was also a handsome young man in the crowd. He was the chief disciple of the Thousand Autumns sect, Qiao Xian. Back then on the star platform, this person had also seen Ji Tianxing. At this moment, when Qiao Xian saw that the person from the Sky Pillar sect was Ji Tianxing and not Yun Yao, he couldn't help but reveal a disappointed expression. As soon as Ji Tianxing walked over, he snorted with a displeased expression. Humph! Did the people from the Sky Pillar sect take the wrong medicine? They didn't send Yun Yao to challenge the Seven Stars Pagoda, but sent a brat instead? Qiao Xian didn't deliberately lower his voice, so the young disciples beside him heard it. Everyone immediately quieted down and looked at Ji Tianxing playfully, wanting to see his reaction. Ji Tianxing originally saw two acquaintances and was about to come over to greet them. But when he suddenly heard Qiao Xian's cold snort, he couldn't help but frown. He looked at Qiao Xian coldly and said indifferently, "If you criticize my Sky Pillar sect again, I'll make you crawl away." It was a very short sentence, but it contained an unquestionable domineering and fierce aura. Qiao Xian was immediately stunned, and several young martial artists also showed surprised expressions as they looked at Ji Tianxing in disbelief. Everyone couldn't believe that Ji Tianxing had the guts to humiliate Qiao Xian in public. Qiao Xian was so angry that his face turned ashen. He glared at Ji Tianxing and shouted in a deep voice, "Brat, what did you say?" Ji Tianxing looked at him indifferently and said coldly, "I told you to keep your mouth clean, or I'll shut you up." "Hee, you're very arrogant, brat." Qiao Xian was so angry that he laughed, and a cold light surged in his eyes. "If Yun Yao were here, I would naturally respect her. But who do you think you are? How dare you talk to me like this? You're courting death." Qiao Xian was already depressed, and being humiliated by Ji Tianxing in public, he was naturally furious. Chapter 318. Qiao Xian was the chief disciple of the Thousand Autumns sect and had the strength of a LV8 Tongxian realm martial artist. Qiao Xian realm martial artist's palm strike was extremely powerful and caused a gust of wind to blow. Everyone retreated. Ji Tianxing's expression did not change. He calmly extended his left hand and punched out. Bam! His fiery red fist radiance collided with Qiao Xian's blue palm shadow and exploded with a loud bang. The violent energy exploded, blowing everyone's clothes into the air. Dust was also blown up in the air. What was inconceivable was that Ji Tianxing stood on the spot without moving, but Qiao Xian was forced back 8 steps and almost fell to the ground. Qiao Xian was stunned. He stared at Ji Tianxing with his eyes wide open in disbelief. The surrounding young martial artists also exclaimed in disbelief. Even Feng Min and Wu Yu revealed astonishment in their eyes. They did not expect that Ji Tianxing's strength would increase so much in just a month. He was actually stronger than Qiao Xian. However, the crowd did not know that Ji Tianxing did not use his full strength. If he used his full strength and his trump card, Qiao Xian would not be his match. After all, Qiao Xian, who was at LV8 Tongxian realm, was about the same strength as Tang Yilua. Qiao Xian came back to his senses and his expression became uglier. The anger in his eyes surged. He stared at Ji Tianxing with a ferocious expression and sneered. "Haha, no wonder you're so arrogant. You have some skills." Ji Tianxing looked at him indifferently and said, "It's more than enough to kill you. You're fucking courting death." Qiao Xian suppressed his anger and immediately burst out. He cursed with a twisted face and a blue light surged from his body. He was going to explode with his full strength. However, right at this moment, Feng Min and Wu Yu arrived beside him without making a sound. They stretched out their palms and pressed on Qiao Xian's shoulders. "Qiao Xian, stop. Fighting in front of everyone. Aren't you afraid of embarrassing the Thousand Autumns sect? Junior brother Qiao, the Seven Stars Pagoda is about to open. Do you want to cause trouble at this time?" Feng Min and Wu Yu's strength were both not weaker than Qiao Xian. The two people attacking at the same time immediately suppressed Qiao Xian, making it difficult for him to erupt with true essence. Qiao Xian turned to look at the two of them and frowned. He had no choice but to suppress the anger in his heart. "Humph. Since you two are trying to persuade me, I'll spare that brat for now." In fact, he was just taking the opportunity to find a way out. After all, He didn't want to shed all pretense of cordiality with the Sky Pillar sect's disciples and fight them in public. Most importantly, he could tell that Ji Tianxing was not someone to be trifled with. He might not be able to beat him. Seeing that Qiao Xian had suppressed his anger, Wu Yu and Feng Min walked towards Ji Tianxing. Junior brother Ji, we meet again. Junior brother Ji, how have you been? The two of them smiled and cupped their hands, greeting Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing also cupped his hands in return and exchanged a few pleasantries with the two of them. The other young disciples were standing not far away and discussing in low voices. They looked at Ji Tianxing with complicated expressions. Previously, they didn't put Ji Tianxing in their eyes. Now that they knew, they didn't dare to look down on and ridicule him. At this moment, a tall and sturdy young man in a white robe strode into the open space with his head held high. Seeing this person arrive, several young disciples went up to greet him with smiles on their faces. Senior brother Shi, you're finally here. Senior brother Wenyu, why are you the last to arrive? Hee. Looking at senior brother Wenyu's confident appearance, it seems that you're very confident in entering the 7th floor this time? The person who came was the chief disciple of the Tianjian sect, Shi Wenyu. The young disciples surrounding him all belonged to sects that had good relations with the Tianjian sect. Qiao Xian, who had been humiliated in public, also surrounded Shi Wenyu. He said to Shi Wenyu in a playful tone, Senior brother Wenyu, who do you think the Sky Pillar sect sent to enter the 7 Stars Pagoda this time? Shi Wenyu froze for a moment and asked with a frown, Isn't it Yun Yao? Of course not. Qiao Xian sneered. He turned his head and glanced at Ji Tianxing not far away, and said in a gloomy tone, It's that brat. Shi Wenyu's eyes flashed and he immediately turned his head to look at Ji Tianxing. He remained calm and collected on the surface, but he secretly muttered in his heart, Great. Yun Yao didn't come. After I enter the 7th floor, I'll definitely complete the task given to me by Master. At this time, Qiao Xian used a secret sound transmission technique and quietly said to Shi Wenyu, Senior brother Wenyu, this brat is very arrogant. He just said in public that only he can enter the 7th floor. Shi Wenyu's eyes turned gloomy. He glanced at Ji Tianxing and nodded. I've seen him on the star platform. This brat really doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. If Yun Yao is qualified to say that, then who does he think he is? Haha. With me, Shi Wenyu here, this little loach can't stir up any trouble. Seeing that Shi Wenyu was staring at Ji Tianxing with strong hostility, Qiao Xian also revealed a sneer of success. After a while, all the disciples of the 8 sects had arrived. Everyone boarded the array platform and surrounded a circular array disc. There were 8 grooves on the millstone-sized array disc. Their shapes, sizes, and patterns were the same as the tokens in everyone's hands. Everyone took out their respective tokens and placed them in the grooves on the array disc. As a result, the array disc began to slowly rotate, emitting a 5-colored array brilliance. The Tianyuan array protecting the 7 Stars Pagoda was activated, and an oval-shaped light door appeared in front of everyone. Only after passing through the light door could they enter the array and arrive at the entrance of the 7 Stars Pagoda. Everyone put away their tokens and looked up at the entrance of the first floor of the 7 Stars Pagoda. Shi Wenyu looked around and glanced at everyone. He smiled and said, Junior brothers and sisters, it's time to challenge the pagoda again. Who will go first this time? Several young disciples began to discuss with different expressions. Senior brother Wenyu is full of confidence. Why don't you go first? Senior brother Shi, you go first. Yun Yao didn't come this year. The person who can enter the 7th floor must be senior brother Wenyu. At this moment, Ji Tianxing, who had been silent all this time, stepped into the light door first. Swoosh! His figure flashed and passed through the Tianyuan array and arrived at the entrance of the 7 Stars Pagoda. Shi Wenyu and the other young disciples' faces suddenly changed, and they all turned to look at Ji Tianxing. Ha! This kid is really arrogant. With senior brother Wenyu here, this kid still dares to be the first to challenge the pagoda. He doesn't take senior brother Wenyu seriously at all. Heh. This is the first time this kid has come to challenge the pagoda. He must be a hothead. Let's see how he will be ejected from the pagoda later. I bet this kid can't even pass the first 3 floors. Just as everyone was gloating, Ji Tianxing turned and walked to the side of the pagoda. Under everyone's puzzled gaze, He stepped on the narrow ladder on the side of the pagoda and directly ascended to the 4th floor of the 7 Stars Pagoda. He ignored the first 3 floors and started from the 4th floor of the 7 Stars Pagoda. Chapter 319. Oh my god, is this kid crazy? It's his first time here and he's starting from the 4th level? He's overestimating himself. Hee hee. Ji Tianqing is really a hothead who doesn't know his limits. Ha ha ha. Everyone, just wait and see. In 15 minutes, that kid will fail and be ejected from the 7-star pagoda. Seeing that Ji Tianqing had directly entered the 4th floor, the few young disciples all revealed a gloating sneer, and they unscrupulously mocked and talked about him. Feng Min and Wu Yu naturally wouldn't open their mouths to talk about Ji Tianqing, much less mock him. However, their expressions and eyes showed that they did not know whether to laugh or cry. Obviously, they felt that Ji Tianqing was too confident. Sigh, it's junior brother Ji's first time here and he's so reckless? Wu Yu sighed softly. If he had started from the 1st level honestly, with his talent and strength, it would not be a problem for him to pass the first 3 levels. Yes. Feng Min nodded in agreement and said with a regretful tone, if he passes the first 3 levels, he will gain a lot of benefits. But if he starts from the 4th level and fails later, he won't gain anything and will be ejected. There were 2 doors to enter the 7-star pagoda. Under normal circumstances, disciples from various sects would enter from the 1st level of the pagoda and go up 1 level at a time. Every level of the pagoda was a small world. There were risks and tests, but there were also many benefits and resources. The first 3 levels were relatively simple. Disciples from various sects would go through them one by one and gain many benefits. Among the disciples from various sects, other than Yun Yao who had the strength and qualifications to start from the 4th level, no one else dared to do so. No one expected that Ji Tianqing would imitate Yun Yao and directly start from the 4th floor on his first attempt at the pagoda. In fact, Ji Tianqing's purpose for coming to the 7-star pagoda was different from the disciples from various sections. The disciples from various sects wanted to gain as much cultivation resources as possible in the 7-star pagoda to improve their strength. Ji Tianqing, on the other hand, wanted to save Ji Ku. He only wanted to reach the top of the 7-star pagoda as soon as possible and place the Jade Soul coffin. It was precisely because of this that he couldn't be bothered to start from the 1st level. He didn't want to waste time. Shwa! The black door to the 4th floor of the 7 Stars Pagoda opened. Ji Tianqing stepped through the door and disappeared in a flash. In the open space below the tower, the crowd saw that he had really entered the 4th level and discussed for a while. Qiao Xian had a cold smile on his face as he said, "Haha, that brat indeed entered the 4th level. Truly, the ignorant are fearless. I'd like to see how long that brat can last." In at most 15 minutes, he will fail and be ejected from the 7 Stars Pagoda. The chief disciple of the true martial sect also nodded in agreement. Let's not rush into the pagoda. Let's wait here for 15 minutes and see how disheveled that kid will be when he gets ejected. The Wind Fire sect disciple looked at Xueqi beside him. Seeing his gloomy face, he smiled and said, "Senior brother Wenyu, Yun Yao didn't come to challenge this time. Only you can reach the 7th level. How can you let that brat steal the limelight?" Xueqi frowned and said in a cold tone, "Everyone, stay here and watch the show. I'll make a move first." After saying that, he also stepped through the light door and walked toward the suspended ladder on the side of the 7 Stars Pagoda. In a moment, he stepped on the suspended ladder and ascended to the 4th level. He took out the silver token and opened the black stone door. He also began to challenge from the 4th level. The disciples in the open space whispered a few words to each other. There's a good show to watch now. It seems that senior brother Wenyu has been angered by that brat. Haha, let's wait and see the result. Let's see who will successfully enter the 5th level between Xueqi and Ji Tianqing. At most 15 minutes, if the copper lamp on the octagonal cornice of the 4th level of the pagoda lights up, it means that they have succeeded. Everyone, take your time and watch. I'll make a move first. Soon, several disciples stepped through the light door and began to challenge the 1st level of the 7 Stars Pagoda. Qiao Xian and the 2 young disciples were not in a hurry to challenge the pagoda. They stood under the pagoda and looked up at the 4th level, waiting to see Ji Tianqing make a fool of himself. Ji Tianqing stood on a wide street and looked around expressionlessly. The street under his feet was flat and neat. On both sides of the street were rows of high-rise houses and rows of shops. There was an endless stream of pedestrians hurriedly walking through the street or lingering between the shops. The hawking of the peddlers and the laughter of the pedestrians constantly came from all directions. There were also many martial artists carrying swords and sabers. Their auras were valiant and overbearing. They walked through the street quickly like the wind, and the collision of their swords and sabers made crisp clanging sounds. When the commoners in plain clothes saw these martial artists passing by, they immediately panicked and moved far away in awe. This is actually a city? There are so many commoners and martial artists living in the city? Ji Tianqing looked around, and a look of surprise appeared on his face. Before coming to the Seven Stars Pagoda, Yun Yao had introduced the situation of the Seven Stars Pagoda to him. The world in the first 3 levels of the pagoda was fixed and did not have much danger or difficulty. However, from the 4th level onwards, the world in the pagoda became more difficult and mysterious. According to Yun Yao, the world in the 4th level was an illusory world. In this small world, there would be all kinds of illusions, such as a world of ice and snow, a volcano with flowing lava, a vast primitive forest, or a vast ocean. Yun Yao entered the 4th level of the Seven Stars Pagoda every year, and the illusory world she encountered was different. Therefore, she could not sum up any experience to pass on to Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing could only rely on himself to slowly explore and observe to gradually understand this city. He walked on the street and looked around with keen eyes to explore the city's situation. It was early in the morning, and the morning fog that shrouded the city was gradually dispersing. There was a breakfast shop at the corner of the street, and the aroma of porridge and buns kept coming out. There were many commoners sitting around tables, eating porridge on benches and eating meat buns with relish. An orange-red sun was rising from the western horizon. The sun is rising from the west? When he saw this scene, Ji Tianqing was stunned for a moment and thought that he was going in the wrong direction. However, after he checked again and again, he was sure that he was not going in the wrong direction. It's really strange. The sun is rising from the west. Ji Tianqing muttered in his heart. He felt that this city was giving off a strange aura. At this moment, a few shrill screams came from the bun shop 10 meters in front of him. A tall and sturdy middle-aged warrior with a lofty face rushed out of the shop with a treasured saber in his hand. This person had dark skin and 2 scars on his face. He was emitting a valiant murderous aura, and the blade of the treasured saber in his hand was still dripping with dark red blood. In the shop, the white-haired old shopkeeper was lying motionless on the counter. His neck had been cut off, and blood was gushing out from the wound. There were a few corpses lying on the ground, including the waiter, the steaming bunmaster, and a few innocent diners and commoners. Everyone was killed with a single slash. Their necks were cut off, and their heads rolled to the side. Blood splattered on the ground, the walls, and the tables. The diners in the bun shop were so frightened that they fled in panic, and they screamed in horror. The aroma of porridge and buns was immediately covered by the thick smell of blood. The scarred man, who was brimming with killing intent, laughed sinisterly when he saw everyone fleeing in panic. Chapter 320. Ji Tianqing hadn't figured out what was going on in this city when he saw such a shocking scene. In just a few breaths, a few more people who couldn't escape in time were slashed to the ground by the scarred man. Blood sprayed everywhere. Several heads rolled on the ground, leaving a trail of blood along the way. A stream of blood spurted in front of Ji Tianqing, almost spilling on his white robe. There was also a white-haired old man's head, which rolled to his feet. He stared at him with wide eyes, which were full of fear and despair. Ji Tianqing's face became cold. Anger rose in his heart, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. Too cruel, too inhumane. He didn't hesitate to pull out the black dragon sword and slashed at the scarred man 10 steps away. The man was still chasing after an old woman who was staggering and holding a walking stick. She was still holding 2 meat buns wrapped in paper tightly in her hands. Bang! In the muffled sound, the dazzling sword light from the black dragon sword slashed at the treasured sword in the scarred man's hand. The heavy treasured sword flew out, and the scarred man was also knocked to the ground. His left hand covered his broken right arm, and he struggled to get up. Ji Tianqing's figure flashed and came in front of the scarred man. He lifted his foot and stomped on his chest. Bang! The scarred man's chest caved in, and he spat out a stream of blood. He was seriously injured by Ling Yun's foot and lay on the ground, unable to move. Ji Tianqing stared at him with a cold face and asked in a cold voice, "Why? They are all innocent people. Why do you want to kill them? What grudge do they have with you? How can you be so cruel and inhumane?" The scarred man stared at Ji Tianqing with his eyes wide open and roared in a low voice, "Little bastard, it's none of your business. I ate 2 meat buns, and they put coriander in them. Of course, I want to kill their whole family." Ji Tianqing was stunned. He only felt that his understanding of good and evil in human nature had been subverted. Such an insignificant matter actually made the knife-scarred man go crazy and kill people on the street, and he even said it so confidently and confidently. What was wrong with this world? How could this city be so strange? Ji Tianqing glared at the scarred man and shouted angrily, "You crazy executioner, you deserve to die." The scar-faced man stretched out his hands and tried his best to pull his ankles. He struggled to get up and roared at the top of his lungs, "Do you need a reason to kill? Who asked you to be a busybody? You're really stubborn." Ji Tianqing didn't want to waste any more words with him. He held the black dragon and pierced through his chest. Puh! The blade pierced through the scarred man's heart, and blood spurted out from the wound. His body immediately stiffened, and his eyes widened as he stopped moving. Ji Tianqing withdrew the black dragon sword, only to discover that the scarred man's body had ignited with golden flames. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared into thin air. The blazing golden flames turned into a wisp of golden true essence and quickly entered his body. He immediately felt that the wisp of pure golden true essence merged with his true essence, increasing his strength a little. It was equivalent to 2 days of closed-door cultivation. This. Ji Tianqing was stunned for a moment, and his expression became a little strange. He secretly pondered for a moment, and vaguely guessed something. He turned and left. The street corner, which had been bustling with people just a moment ago, immediately became dead silent. Not even the shadow of a ghost could be seen. Ji Tianqing passed through an alley and came to another street. This street was still bustling with noise and excitement. The pedestrians were calm and relaxed, as if they didn't know about the tragedy that happened on the next street. Ji Tianqing walked on the street with a normal expression. After silently observing for a while, he found a clue. He found that the doors of the shops on both sides of the street had a palm-sized mark engraved on the doorframe. It looked like a badge. He walked in front of a cloth shop and stared at the badge on the doorframe. In the black badge, there was actually a black spider carved on it. It looked sinister and eerie, revealing a strange feeling. At this moment, there was a rush of horse hooves on the street behind him. 6 valiant warriors in black, wearing masks, and riding 6 tall wild-wind wildebeests, rushed over from the end of the street. The 6 warriors in black were like a gust of wind blowing through the street, knocking away all the people who didn't have time to dodge. They rushed to a pharmacy and stopped in front of it. Swish! Swish! The 6 of them jumped down from their horses, and rushed into the drugstore like tigers and wolves, carrying their treasured sabers that were shining with a cold light. The surrounding people were suddenly scared and fled in all directions. They screamed in horror and left the basket of vegetables, parcels, and some sundries on the ground. Run! The horse gang is here. Run for your life! There were not many people in the pharmacy in the early morning. There were only the shopkeeper, 2 doctors, and a few old people who were in their twilight years. They were asking for medical treatment. After the 6 horse gang in black rushed into the pharmacy, they waved their swords and killed the shopkeeper and the doctors without saying anything. Swish! 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 They killed the shopkeeper and the doctors with a few chopped heads rolling on the ground. A few old people with white hair were so scared that they fell to the ground. They rolled and crawled out of the door to escape. But before they could run a few steps, they were kicked out by the horse gang in black, or their necks were chopped off by the swords. Suddenly, the pharmacy became a mess. The smell of blood rushed to their faces. After the black-clothed bandits killed the man, they rummaged through the medicine store for medicinal herbs and put all kinds of medicinal herbs into linen bags. In a short time, the 6 horse gang had a few big bags of medicinal herbs. They were about to leave the pharmacy and escape. At this moment, Ji Tianqing appeared at the door of the pharmacy with a gloomy face. He held the black dragon sword in his hand and blocked the way of the horse gang. The 6 horse gang stared at him coldly and shouted angrily in a low voice. "Brat, get lost. You're courting death. Meddling in other people's business. Go to hell." At the same time, the six-horse gang in black wielded their swords and charged at Ji Tianqing with murderous intent. They started to besiege him. The six of them were at LV2 or LV3 of the Tongxian realm. When they joined forces to besiege Ji Tianqing, the radiance of their swords and sabers flashed. A violent gust of wind blew in all directions, shattering the medicine cabinet and the door. Ji Tianqing waved the black dragon's sword with a cold expression. He exerted all his strength and slashed out dozens of dazzling sword radiances. Bang! 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 After a series of dull sounds of sword radiances colliding, the six-horse gang in black were sent flying and lay on the ground with blood all over their bodies. After exchanging a few blows, the six-horse gang in black were killed by Ji Tianqing on the spot. Their corpses burned with golden flames and soon disappeared into thin air. They turned into wisps of golden vital essence and entered Ji Tianqing's body. After the 6 wisps of pure vital essence merged with his vital essence, his strength increased by a large margin. Ji Tianqing put away the black dragon sword and was about to leave the medicine store. At this moment, he suddenly heard the sound of fighting and terrified screams coming from a restaurant 100 meters away. He immediately used the shadowless step and turned into an afterimage. He dashed into the restaurant as fast as the wind. Just as he rushed into the restaurant's lobby, he saw that the lobby was in a mess. Countless tables and chairs were shattered into pieces and scattered on the ground. Dozens of corpses covered in blood were lying on the ground in different postures. Large patches of blood were splattered on the ground. The blood even gathered together and flowed on the ground like a small stream. 2 middle-aged men dressed like tycoons were fleeing from the second floor with terrified expressions. They scrambled into the lobby. A young man in a white robe walked down the stairs with a cold smile. He carried a treasured sword and came to the lobby. His white robe was stained with a few streaks of blood. Dark red blood was still dripping from the blade of his sword that shone with a cold light. When Ji Tianqing saw his appearance, he immediately frowned and his face turned cold. Chapter 321. Ji Tianqing had never expected that the murderer who had killed so many innocent people in the restaurant would be Shi Wenyu. He froze at once and stared at Shi Wenyu in disbelief. Shi Wenyu was also stunned when he saw Xueqi appear in the lobby. However, Shi Wenyu only glanced at him before he caught up with the 2 middle-aged tycoons and pierced their chests with his sword. The 2 middle-aged tycoons died instantly and their corpses fell to the ground. Their eyes were still wide open and blood kept flowing out of their mouths. In the blink of an eye, 2 wisps of light golden true core strength flew out of the 2 corpses and went into Shi Wenyu's body. Shi Wenyu suddenly showed a look of enjoyment and a smile on his face. He stepped over the corpses on the ground and walked toward the door. Ji Tianqing stared at Shi Wenyu's back and shouted, "Shi Wenyu, I didn't expect that as the chief disciple of the Tianjian sect, you would be so cruel and tyrannical and kill innocent people." Shi Wenyu immediately stopped and turned to look at him, his face full of surprise. "Ji Tianqing, are you out of your mind? Can't you see it? This is an illusory world. Everything is fake. As long as you can increase your strength by killing people, who cares if they are good or evil?" Hearing his words, Ji Tianqing frowned and shouted in a low voice, "Greed will only destroy human nature. Shi Wenyu, you are really unscrupulous in order to achieve your goal." Shi Wenyu was stunned for a moment. He looked at Xueqi in a strange way and sneered contemptuously. "Hee, I forgot that this is the first time you have come to the tower. It's ridiculous that I am talking nonsense with an idiot like you." After that, he glanced at Ji Tianqing with disdain, stepped over the door of the restaurant and left quickly. Ji Tianqing stood in the lobby and looked at Shi Wenyu's back. He looked at the dozens of corpses in the lobby, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Of course, he knew that this city was an illusory world. Every blade of grass, every tree, every person, and every object were virtual illusions. However, he could not kill the old, weak, sick and innocent people just to increase his strength. He could not do it, and he could not do it. The most fundamental reason was that he could not get over the hurdle in his heart and could not blind his conscience. After a moment, when he walked out of the lobby of the restaurant, screams and fighting came from a shop on the street. Shi Wenyu killed all the people in the shop and rushed to the street, killing passers-by and people everywhere. He killed everyone he saw, even the old, women, and children. It was as if in his eyes, those living beings were just grass and dust on the side of the road, insignificant. In a short quarter hour, Xueqi killed hundreds of people. Even though he had slaughtered many old, weak, women and children, his expression did not change. His eyes flickered with excitement and anticipation. Ji Tianxing couldn't stand it anymore and chased after him to stop him. Xueqi, stop. He waved the black dragon sword and slashed a dazzling sword light at Xueqi from the side. He did not use his full strength. This sword was just to force Xueqi to retreat. However, Xueqi was already prepared for him. He dodged in a flash and killed a few people along the way. Then he sped up and fled the street, jumping onto the roof of a house. He used his lightness skill and jumped through the connected roofs, escaping to the center of the city. Ji Tianxing followed closely behind him. He also jumped over countless roofs and rushed to the center of the city. In the process of the two rushing to the center of the city, Ji Tianxing saw countless killings and tragedies along the way. Many martial artists with swords and sabers were killing in the city. They burned, looted, and wantonly killed innocent people. Finally, Xueqi rushed to the square in the center of the city and stopped in front of a huge stone statue that was hundreds of meters tall. This pitch-black stone statue was carved of an 8-clawed spider. Its body was as black as ink, and its claws and teeth were abnormally sharp. Its appearance was ferocious and sinister. When he saw the black spider statue, Ji Tianxing immediately remembered the emblems he saw at the entrance of the various shops. He looked up at the black spider statue and frowned. Xueqi stood under the statue and looked at him angrily. He asked in a cold voice, Ji Tianxing, what do you want? If you want to stop me from passing the trial, then don't blame me for being impolite. Ji Tianxing also retorted, Xueqi, you are killing innocent people in the city. What does that have to do with you passing the trial? Xueqi frowned and pointed around the city. He sneered, Ji Tianxing, can't you see that there are killings everywhere in the city? The illusory martial artists in the city are massacring the commoners. This is a hint for us to pass the trial. Only by killing people can we pass the trial. Ji Tianxing, I can't be bothered to talk nonsense with you. Get out of my way. Before Ji Tianxing could speak, the huge spider statue behind Xueqi suddenly shook violently. Kacha! Kacha! As the black spider statue shook violently, dense cracks appeared on the surface of the statue and kept spreading in all directions. Countless tiny stone fragments, mixed with huge pieces of broken stone, rustled down. The 100-meter-tall spider statue was about to collapse. The huge commotion caused the entire square to tremble. When the people in all directions saw this scene, they screamed in horror and fled in all directions in panic. Xueqi was also shocked and immediately turned his head to look behind him. Seeing countless gravel falling from 100 meters in the sky and the entire black spider statue about to collapse, his expression changed drastically. Swoosh! Xueqi took a big step forward and ran to the side. Just as he ran for a dozen steps, countless stone fragments and huge rocks came crashing down from the sky, smashing on the ground and producing loud bangs. Ji Tianxing also quickly retreated, avoiding the countless gravel and retreating to the edge of the square 100 meters away. At the same time, the entire black spider statue collapsed completely, turning into gravel that piled up into a small mountain, causing smoke and dust to fill the sky. A sharp and ear-piercing cry came from the thick smoke and dust. Hiss! The next moment, a black behemoth that was more than 10 meters tall crawled out of the pile of gravel. When Ji Tianxing and Xueqi saw the black monster's appearance clearly, their expressions were grave, and a cold light flashed in their eyes. They saw that the black behemoth was actually a giant spider that was as big as a 3-story building. Its entire body was suffused with a dark cold light, and it had 8 abnormally thick and strong limbs. There were also several rows of dense barbs under its abdomen. The strangest thing was that this giant spider had a huge abdomen and ferocious limbs and sharp claws. Its upper body and head were that of a strange and ferocious woman. Chapter 322. The giant spider stretched out its 8 legs, kicked over countless boulders, and slowly approached Xueqi. Its whole body was surrounded by black gas, and green venom was constantly dripping from its wide-open mouth. Xueqi's face was extremely dignified. He clenched his sword with both hands and kept retreating. After a burst of crashing sounds, the giant spider crawled out of the rubble. It showed a ferocious expression, and its brown eyes surged with cold light. It suddenly sped up and pounced on Xueqi. Xueqi's face immediately changed, and he used his lightness skill to retreat, avoiding the giant spider's attack. Bang bang bang! The giant spider missed its target, and its 8 sharp claws smashed the ground of the square, smashing the ground into pieces and splashing out countless gravel. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Xueqi waved his sword with all his strength, and slashed out dozens of cold sword lights toward the giant spider. The giant spider's body was too big, and it was difficult to dodge. It was immediately hit by the sword lights, and there was a burst of muffled bang 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 sounds. However, the black carapace on the surface of its body was too hard, and its defense was extremely strong. Xueqi's sword light did not break the black carapace, and only left a few white marks on the carapace. The giant spider was enraged. It opened its mouth with a ferocious face, and spat out a dark green venom, sprinkling it on Xueqi. Not only that, it jumped 30 meters away, and pounced on Xueqi from the sky, and it also sprinkled a gray spider web, covering an area of 30 meters. Xueqi was suddenly in a dangerous situation. He desperately waved his sword, and used a powerful sword technique to launch a desperate counterattack. But he was soon drowned by the giant spider's figure, and the sword light that he desperately used was also covered by the smoke and spider web. Bang! 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 Muffled sounds rang out incessantly as the violent energy exploded and spread out in all directions. Xueqi was like a small boat in the stormy sea, appearing and disappearing, and was in danger of being drowned at any time. He had only fought with the giant spider for a dozen moves, and he was blasted out and smashed into the square, creating a huge pit on the ground. He climbed up in a sorry state, and while retreating, he did not forget to roar at Ji Tianqing. What are you waiting for? Come and help me. Ji Tianqing, who was standing at the edge of the square 100 meters away, couldn't help sneering when he saw Tang Wulin's miserable appearance. Help you? On what basis? You slaughtered innocents in the city just now. This is your retribution. Xueqi was so angry that his face turned ashen. He was so depressed that he almost vomited blood. He tried his best to resist the giant spider's onslaught and shouted, Ji Tianqing. If you want to pass this trial, you must join hands with me to kill this giant spider. I can see that it's the trial of the 4th level. Once we kill it, we'll be able to pass. How could Ji Tianqing believe him? It was even more impossible for him to fight alongside him. Since you think that you can pass by killing the big spider, then you should work harder. I want to see if you can pass successfully. Humph. Take care of yourself. After saying this, Ji Tianqing turned around and left without hesitation. Hey, don't go! Xueqi was extremely anxious and shouted at the top of his lungs. However, his voice was quickly drowned out by the loud sounds of fighting. Ji Tianqing quickly left the square and continued to run through the city. His eyes were sharp as he looked around for clues. After a while, when he rushed into a street, he saw a few martial artists holding swords and sabers. They were killing and robbing people in the shops on the street. Outside the shops, there were many corpses on the ground and fresh blood splattered everywhere. Those martial artists were carrying the things that they had robbed. They sneered complacently and talked without restraint. Ji Tianqing rushed up with a gloomy face. Without saying a word, he pulled out the black dragon sword and killed those martial artists. Swoosh! 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 Dozens of dazzling cold sword lights, carrying a cold killing intent, instantly enveloped the few martial artists. Everyone was shocked. They immediately waved their swords and sabers to block and counterattack. However, these people were not Ji Tianqing's match at all. Both sides had only exchanged a few moves before several cultivators were killed. After they were killed, their corpses ignited with golden flames and turned into pure golden true essence, which drilled into Ji Tianqing's body. After the golden true essence merged with Ji Tianqing's own true essence, his strength increased by another level. When Xueqi killed innocent people in the city, the corpses that he killed did not burn. The golden true essence that emerged was very thin. Even if I absorbed it, it would not increase my strength by much. After I killed those brutal martial artists, their corpses would burn and turn into pure true essence, which would allow me to quickly increase my strength. Thinking up to this point, Ji Tianqing understood that his method was the fastest way to increase his strength in an open and above-board manner. Next, he continued to shuttle through the city, looking for clues everywhere. Along the way, he constantly encountered people who were fleeing in panic, as well as brutal martial artists who burned, killed, and looted everywhere. Every time he encountered those inhumane martial artists who killed innocent people, he would not let them go. He would kill them with lightning speed. After those brutal martial artists were killed, their corpses would ignite with golden flames and turn into wisps of golden true essence, which would enter his body. As time passed, half a day passed quickly. Ji Tianxing continuously killed hundreds of brutal martial artists. His strength had greatly increased, and he had finally reached the 6th level of the mystic comprehending realm. At this time, he had just rushed into an old house. Screams of agony could be heard from various rooms in the house. There were several corpses in the courtyard, all of which belonged to servants and maids. Ji Tianxing determined the location of the battle by listening to the sounds. He then rushed into the depths of the house like a gust of wind. In a spacious hall, he saw more than 10 well-dressed people. These people were old and young. They were the 3rd generation of the house owner's family. A few mounted gangsters dressed in black were killing them with their swords. Blood splattered everywhere, and many heads rolled to the ground. In the short span of a few breaths, more than 10 people from 3 generations of the family were killed. Their corpses were piled up on the ground. After the mounted gangsters finished killing, they went around to plunder their belongings. Ji Tianxing finally arrived. He rushed into the hall with a grim expression. He waved the black dragon sword with all his might, causing sword light to fill the sky as he attacked the mounted gangsters. The mounted gangsters immediately surrounded him, roaring and cursing as they launched a counterattack. Both sides fought fiercely in the hall. Soon, they rushed out of the door and moved to the courtyard outside. Ding ding dang dang, the sound of swords clashing could be heard. A violent and devastating wind spread out, turning the entire courtyard into a mess. In the short span of 100 breaths, the mounted gangsters of the mystic comprehending realm were all killed by Ji Tianxing. The corpses ignited with golden flames and turned into pure golden true essence, which entered Ji Tianxing's body. Ji Tianxing put away the black dragon sword. Suddenly, he heard a child crying in the hall. He stopped and hesitated for a moment. Then, he turned around and returned to the hall. Behind the screen in the corner of the hall, he saw a little girl about 6 or 7 years old. She was curled up in the corner with tears all over her face. She was crying so hard that she was out of breath. Ji Tianxing knew that this was an illusory world. Everything was fake. However, when he saw that the whole family had died tragically and only the little girl was left alive, he still felt somewhat depressed. He reached out to wipe away the tears on the little girl's face. He coaxed her gently for a while before she stopped crying. The little girl raised her head and looked at him. Her big clear eyes revealed her innocence. She held an ancient bronze mirror with both hands and handed it to Ji Tianxing. Chapter 323. Hearing the little girl's clear voice, Ji Tianxing noticed the bronze mirror in her hand. Previously, she was curled up in the corner, and even though she was trembling in fear, her hands were still holding this ancient bronze mirror tightly. Ji Tianxing took the bronze mirror and looked at it. He found that this bronze mirror was a little strange. There was a circle of mysterious patterns on the edge of the bronze mirror, and a picture was carved on the back. It was a huge black spider. What was more strange was that when Ji Tianxing held the bronze mirror and looked at it, there was nothing in the mirror. It did not reflect his appearance at all. This discovery made Ji Tianxing frown, and his heart was filled with doubts. This is an illusory world. The sun rises from the west, and even the mirror does not reflect one's figure. He secretly thought for a while, and suddenly a light flashed in his mind. He vaguely guessed something. He threw the bronze mirror on the ground, and with a bang sound, the bronze mirror broke into pieces. Suddenly, the broken bronze mirror lit up with a blazing white true essence brilliance. Swoosh! The dazzling white light immediately condensed into an oval-shaped light door, erected in front of him. The blazing white light door was dark and mysterious, as if it led to another world. Ji Tianxing suddenly smiled and muttered to himself, "I see, I guessed right, this is a mirror world." After saying that, he lowered his head and looked at the little girl in the green dress. He smiled and thanked her. The little girl looked up at him, and her pink and cute little face showed an innocent smile. Ji Tianxing stepped into the light door, and his figure disappeared with a swoosh. The next moment, a white light flashed in front of his eyes, and he came to another strange world. Under the 7 Stars Pagoda, Chao Xian and the 2 young disciples were still standing in the open space. The 3 of them stood side by side, talking and laughing softly as they looked up at the 4th level of the 7 Stars Pagoda. Haha, 15 minutes is almost up, and the bronze lamp on the 4th level of the pagoda still has not moved. Senior brother Chao, even if we continue to wait, it will be a waste of time. That's right. It's Ji Tianxing's first time here. He probably doesn't even know the directions in the tower. How could he pass? Chao Xian revealed a mocking sneer and said in a venomous tone, "Of course I know that little bastard won't be able to pass. If he can pass the 4th level, I can ascend to the 7th level. I just want to see with my own eyes how miserable he looks when he's thrown out of the 7 Stars Pagoda. At that time, I will definitely ruthlessly mock him, making him unable to raise his head again and become the laughingstock of the disciples of the various sects." The 2 young disciples revealed a playful smile and said in a mocking tone, "It seems that kid has offended senior brother Chao quite a bit. Hee. Senior brother Chao is very fond of Yun Yao. This year, Yun Yao didn't come, so senior brother Chao didn't get to see the person he likes. Of course, he's in a bad mood." Just as the 3 of them were chatting, one of the 8 bronze lamps on the 4th floor of the 7 Stars Pagoda lit up. The huge bronze lamp lit up with a bright yellow light, illuminating the dark night. The 3 of them were immediately stunned. They all stared at the bronze lamp and their faces became gloomy. He actually passed? Chao Xian's face was full of astonishment. Obviously, he couldn't believe this result. The other 2 young disciples hurriedly persuaded him, "Senior brother Chao, don't worry. It's just one lamp. Maybe it's senior brother Wen Yu who successfully passed?" That's right. Senior apprentice brother Wen Yu also started from the 4th level, so he must have passed it. Chao Xian was silent and waited with a gloomy face. Time passed quietly. Soon, 100 breaths had passed. At this time, the 2nd bronze lamp lit up on the eaves of the 4th floor of the pagoda. The 2nd lamp lit up? That kid and senior brother when you both passed? The 2 young disciples immediately revealed a surprised expression and whispered in disbelief. Chao Xian's face immediately became extremely ugly. His eyes were surging with a cold light of anger. He growled in a low voice, "How is this possible? That damn bastard. It's his first time here. How could he pass the 4th floor so quickly? A moment ago, he had vowed that if Ji Tianxing could pass the 4th floor, he could ascend to the 7th floor. Now, Ji Tianxing had obviously succeeded in passing the 4th floor. Chao Xian was slapped in the face by the facts. He was suddenly embarrassed and ashamed. His face turned green and white, and his body trembled with anger. The other 2 young disciples looked at each other and smiled awkwardly. They didn't say anything more. Forget it. Let's not waste any more time. Let's go in quickly. Senior brother Chao will go first. The 2 young disciples said goodbye and quickly entered the gate of the 1st floor of the 7 Stars Pagoda. They started to break through. Chao Xian was left alone in the open space. He cursed a few times with a face full of anger. Then he quickly entered the 7 Stars Pagoda and started to break through from the 1st floor. Ji Tianxing was walking in a vast and desolate mountain range. He held the black dragon sword in his hand and looked around vigilantly. He was surrounded by endless dark brown mountains. The mountains rose and fell, connecting to the end of the sky. The mountains were bare. There were dark brown rocks and hard soil everywhere. As far as the eye could see, the hundreds of miles of mountains were dark gray. There was no greenery at all. Ji Tianxing was walking on top of a mountain range that was thousands of feet high. His figure was like a gust of wind as he flipped over one rock pile after another. Suddenly, he jumped over a huge rock that was as big as a palace and stopped. On the hard dark brown ground, there was a huge and terrifying footprint. He squatted next to the footprint and carefully observed it. He found that the huge footprint with a radius of 2 meters was sunken more than half a meter deep. The sole of the footprint was fan-shaped. There were a total of 4 thick toes. At first glance, it was obvious that it was left by some kind of giant beast. He continued to walk forward. After walking for 20 meters, he found the same footprint. He frowned and pondered for a moment. Immediately, he analyzed a shocking result. The size of this beast must be huge. It can actually cross 20 meters in one step. It can actually make a half-meter deep hole in the ground that is as hard as a rock. Its weight must be shocking. Looking at the fresh footprint, it must have been left today. Thinking of this, Ji Tianqing's face became serious. His sharp eyes searched around. Although he had just entered the world of the 5th floor, he was not sure what kind of small world it was. But his intuition told him that this desolate and quiet world must be very dangerous. At this moment, 2 huge heads suddenly popped out from a pile of rocks 100 meters behind him. The 2 dark brown heads were as big as a water tank. They were sharp like crocodiles. Chapter 324. Hiss, hiss, hiss. 2 gigantic 5-meter-long dark brown behemoths slowly crawled out from the rocks. They looked like crocodiles, with their sturdy limbs stepping on the ground, leaving footprints the size of wash basins on the ground. They crawled forward slowly and silently, not making the slightest sound. When they were about 100 meters away from Ji Tianqing, they suddenly sped up and rushed toward Ji Tianqing like arrows leaving the bowstring. Whoosh! The 2 black behemoths were like 2 black afterimages, streaking across the sky as fast as lightning, and instantly rushed behind Ji Tianqing. Their sturdy limbs suddenly bounced and jumped more than 5 meters high, pouncing toward Ji Tianqing from the sky. At the same time, Ji Tianqing had already sensed that something was wrong, and quickly turned around. When he saw the appearance of the 2 black behemoths, he couldn't help but be stunned for a moment, and a look of surprise flashed in his eyes. Are these crocodiles or geckos? They're lizards. Ji Tianqing clearly saw that the 2 black behemoths' sharp mouths didn't have 2 rows of sharp fangs like crocodiles, but a long dark red tongue. The tongue was full of barbs, and the tip of the tongue was forked into 2 halves, like 2 long spears. He was immediately sure that the 2 dark brown behemoths were not crocodiles, but lizards. Oh my God! How can lizards grow to such a huge size? Ji Tianqing was full of shock, and quickly took out the black dragon sword to counterattack. However, something even stranger happened. The black dragon sword also became incomparably huge, and was much taller than his body. He hugged the black dragon sword with both hands, as if he was hugging a door plank, and looked very awkward and strange. Bang bang bang! Ji Tianqing slashed out a few sword lights with all his strength, but they were all smashed by the 2 giant lizards, and collapsed on the spot. The violent chi exploded, and he was forced to take 10 steps back, almost falling into the rocks. The 2 giant lizards missed their target, but they immediately bounced up and pounced on him again. Ji Tianqing hurriedly used shadowless steps to retreat and dodge. He desperately brandished the black dragon sword, slashing out sword lights that blotted out the sky and covered the earth as he fought with the 2 large lizards. At the same time, he used his spiritual sense to ask, "Little black dragon, what's wrong with you? Why did the black dragon sword become so huge?" The little black dragon was silent for a moment before replying in a low, muffled voice. "Old Ji, it's not me who's become bigger, it's you who's become smaller." What? Ji Tianqing was stunned for a moment, and his expression became extremely strange. He awkwardly dodged the attacks of the 2 large lizards and hurriedly retreated more than 10 meters away, hiding behind a towering pile of rocks. He lowered his head to check the condition of his body and found that his body and limbs had indeed shrunk by many times. At this moment, he was only half a meter tall and looked like a 4- or 5-year-old child. Damn it! How did it become like this? The tiny lizard became a giant beast, and I became a tiny human. What kind of world was this? Why is it so strange? Earlier, he had been walking alone on the mountain peak and had nothing to refer to, so he had not noticed the changes in his body. Now, with the little black dragon's reminder, he realized that he had become a tiny human and appeared especially weak. His mood was somewhat complicated, and his brow was furrowed in deep worry. At this moment, the 2 large lizards leaped over the pile of rocks and pounced down from above. To Ji Tianqing's shock, the 2 large lizards opened their mouths and spat out tensome dark red flames that covered the sky and poured down in torrents. They had clearly been enraged. Dark red flames surged out of their bodies and burst forth with an astonishingly powerful chi. Great Fei at the origin core stage? Ji Tianqing immediately frowned in shock. He had never imagined that the 2 large lizards would have condensed a Yao core and possessed strength comparable to origin core stage experts. At this critical moment, he had no time to think. He circulated his true essence with all his might and stimulated the strength of his left arm. In an instant, his entire left arm became as red as lava, and scarlet true fire surged out of his palm. He viciously slammed his palm toward the two large lizards, unleashing a gigantic flaming palm with a radius of 10 meters. Bang! With a dull thud, the two large lizards were sent flying by the flaming palm. They crashed into the rocks in the distance, black smoke rising from their bodies. He had to deal with two Origin Core Stage Fae, so the Black Dragon Sword was of no use. Thus, the Black Dragon Sword transformed into the little black dragon with a whoosh. Qian Yu also flew out of the 100 Treasures brocade pouch and revealed its true form. The two of them wanted to join forces with Ji Tianqing to deal with the two large lizards. However, an inconceivable scene occurred. After the little black dragon revealed its true form, it was only a meter long. It did not look like a dragon at all, but more like a tiny black snake. Qian Yu's body was also pitifully small. It was less than a meter long and looked like an ice blue puppy. How did I become so small? How can this be? This king has become a tiny little thing? The little black dragon and Qian Yu both cried out in alarm, unable to accept this result. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing vaguely understood. The world of the 5th level is very special. Outsiders like us will become tiny and insignificant. The creatures and beasts in this world, on the other hand, will become enormous and powerful. Let's not worry about that for now. Let's kill those two large lizards first. Ji Tianqing immediately led the little black dragon and Qian Yu toward the two large lizards, using all his strength to attack. 1000 Feather Blade. He released 9 dark golden sword rays, which carried an unparalleled sharpness as they shot toward the two large lizards. The 9 sword rays attacked the two large lizards from different angles and directions. They were unbelievably fast, and golden sword images filled the sky. The two large lizards were already injured and had no way of dodging the sword rays. They were immediately enveloped by the golden sword images. Bang! 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 With a string of thuds, the 9 sword rays struck the two large lizards, causing blood to flow from their eyes, mouths, and other vital points. The little black dragon and Qian Yu hurriedly launched their own attacks, unleashing ice arrows and blades of light to kill the two large lizards. The two gigantic lizards hissed and screamed in pain. They desperately released dark red flames and threw out balls of fiery light, launching a counterattack. The two sides began to fight on the mountain peak. They fought until the sky was dark and the earth was dark. The earth was constantly trembling, and the sky was filled with gravel and dust. After 15 minutes, Ji Tianqing, the little black dragon, and Qian Yu had used all their strength to finally kill the two large lizards. The massive lizard corpses had been riddled with holes and shattered into several pieces, scattering across the rocks and large pits. Ji Tianqing stared at the corpses of the two large lizards, trying to figure out what was going on. The little black dragon and Qian Yu rummaged through the corpses of the two large lizards, and it wasn't long before they found 2 fist-sized dark red pills. These 2 dark red pills were imbued with boundless energy. They were the Yao cores of the two large lizards. Chapter 325. Ji Tianqing couldn't help but frown as he watched the little black dragon and Qian Yu happily devour the Yao cores. The two of you are in such a hurry to devour the Yao cores. Aren't you afraid that something will go wrong? He was well aware that this was the 5th level of the 7 Stars Pagoda, a strange world where size was reversed. Things that were small would become huge, and things that were large would become small. Such a strange and bizarre world could very well be another illusory world. Since it was an illusion, then it was very likely that there was something wrong with those two Origin Core Stage lizards. He couldn't help but worry that if the little black dragon and Qian Yu hastily devoured the Yao cores, what would happen if something bad happened? Qian Yu hurriedly explained, "Old Ji, don't worry. There won't be any problems. Although this world is very strange, those two lizards and their Yao cores are real. For me and the little black dragon, refining the Yao cores of other great monsters will allow us to quickly recover our strength. It is much more effective than consuming spirit pills or spirit fruits." Ji Tianqing nodded and said nothing more. He silently observed the reactions of the little black dragon and Qian Yu. It didn't take long before he discovered that the little black dragon and Qian Yu had recovered some of their strength. Their bodies had also grown larger. Seeing that they did not have any abnormal reactions, he relaxed and continued on his journey with the little black dragon and Qian Yu. After descending a large mountain, Ji Tianqing discovered several small dark red trees in a cave at the base of the mountain. The air in the cave was scorching hot and brimming with fire energy. Those small dark red trees were covered in dark red fruits that looked like red dates. Ji Tianqing stared at the fruit trees for a few moments before recognizing them as vermilion fruits, a precious spirit fruit. He hurriedly plucked the vermilion fruits from the trees and stuffed 2 of them into his mouth. The rest were stored in his space ring. The little black dragon and Qian Yu silently refined the energy of the Yao cores, no longer having much interest in the vermilion fruits. Ji Tianqing consumed 2 vermilion fruits, and his strength was greatly replenished and enhanced. He borrowed the surging energy from the vermilion fruits to constantly temper the apertures in his sword vein, silently increasing his strength. Then, he was surprised to find that his body was also gradually growing bigger, and his size was slowly recovering. This lifted his spirits and gave him a better understanding of this strange and unknown world. He continued onward with the little black dragon and Qian Yu, ascending another mountain. On this desolate rocky mountain, he encountered a giant silver-gray wolf that was more than 30 meters long and as tall as a 3-story building. This demon wolf was naturally a greater demon that had condensed a demon core. Its strength was comparable to a first-level origin core stage expert, and its strength was even stronger than the 2 large lizards from before. Ji Tianqing observed for a moment and understood that the huge footprints he saw before were made by this demon wolf. On the rocky mountain peak, they were discovered by the demon wolves. There was nowhere to hide, and it was impossible for them to escape. As a result, he, the little black dragon, and Qian Yu could only fight back with all their might. He used the ultimate skill of the flying star sword technique and released a powerful sword ray to fight with the demon wolf. The little black dragon and Qian Yu assisted in the attack from the side, constantly releasing various blades of light to attack the demon wolf's vital points. Both sides fought fiercely, causing the mountain peak to shake violently. Dust and gravel burst into the air, and a raging hurricane blew up. This battle lasted for an entire 15 minutes before it came to an end. The demon wolf had been blinded in one eye, and its body was covered in crisscrossing wounds. Many of the wounds were so deep that bones could be seen, and blood constantly gushed out. Ji Tianqing, the little black dragon, and Qian Yu were all heavily injured, and their strength was greatly depleted. They looked exhausted and in a very sorry state. Seeing that the demon wolf was about to turn and flee into a cave halfway up the mountain, Ji Tianqing and the 2 pets hurriedly gave chase. They chased to the cave halfway up the mountain. Just as the demon wolf was about to enter the cave, Ji Tianqing used the scarlet true fire in his left hand and struck out a huge flaming palm with all his strength. Boom! The huge flaming palm that blotted out the sky smashed the demon wolf to the ground, and half of the cave collapsed. The demon wolf was as black as charcoal, and its body was twisted out of shape. It was already on the verge of death. Ji Tianqing and the 2 pets besieged the demon wolf for a while longer, and then killed it completely. After the death of the demon wolf, the little black dragon and Qian Yu dug out a silver demon core the size of a wash basin from its body. Not only was the demon core huge in appearance, but it also contained the demon wolf's decades of cultivation, which was surging with power. Both the little black dragon and Qian Yu were overjoyed. They excitedly swallowed the demon core and digested the energy contained within. As the demon core's energy was absorbed, the 2 pets became stronger and stronger, and their bodies gradually grew larger. In the next few hours, Ji Tianqing led the little black dragon and Qian Yu over one mountain after another, killing wild beasts along the way. The wild beasts came in all shapes and sizes. There were mosquitoes that were as tall as a person, giant ants that were 2 meters long, poisonous scorpions that were more than 3 meters long, and giant pythons that were more than a dozen meters long. All kinds of small insects and beasts had grown into giant beasts, and all of them had condensed demon cores. This was an eye-opener for Ji Tianqing. He gave the demon cores to the 2 pets so that they could quickly recover their strength. As for the spirit fruits, apart from eating a portion of them, he put the rest into his interspatial ring. About 8 hours later, he had killed a total of 9 origin core realm wild beasts and obtained more than 30 spirit fruits. By then, he had successfully refined the 5th acupoint of the 6th sword vein. He was not far from reaching the 7th level of the ethereal realm. His body also returned to its normal size, returning to its original appearance. The little black dragon and Qian Yu had swallowed several demon cores. Their strength had been greatly improved, and their bodies had also returned to their normal size. Finally, Ji Tianqing did not have to trek through the mountains on foot. He carried the black dragon sword on his back and rode Qian Yu into the sky. He flew at an altitude of 1,000 meters, and his journey was uneventful. Even if he encountered many large wild beasts along the way, they could not attack him. About 2 hours later, he was flying over a mountain range. Suddenly, he saw a tiny white figure on top of the mountain, fighting with a huge demonic beast. He hurriedly told Qian Yu to stop and slowly landed on the mountain peak. Not long after, the white figure finally killed the giant wild beast. However, he was also in a sorry state. He sat on the ground, exhausted and panted heavily. Ji Tianqing landed on the mountain peak and saw that the white figure was Xueqi. At the moment, Xueqi was only half a meter tall, and his body was like that of a 4 or 5-year-old boy. His white robe was full of holes and bloodstains, and his body was covered in cuts and bruises. His long hair was also disheveled, and he looked very miserable. Ji Tianqing walked up to him and looked at him indifferently. "I didn't expect that you would also pass the 4th level and come here." Seeing that his body was normal and uninjured, Xueqi shouted angrily, "Ji Tianqing, you cowardly bastard! If you had joined forces with me, we would have already killed that damned spider and passed the 4th level. I wouldn't have been so heavily injured." Ji Tianqing frowned and sneered. "Xueqi, you and I are enemies, not friends. Why should I fight alongside you? Moreover, in the 4th level, there were clearly open and honorable ways to pass it. But you chose the path of brutality and used slaughter to solve the problem. You only have yourself to blame for being injured like this and ending up in such a sorry state. You deserve it." Chapter 326. Xueqi was filled with rage as he glared at Ji Tianqing, his entire body surging with cold killing intent. However, he suppressed the anger in his heart and gritted his teeth without saying anything. He cussed in his heart, "Ji Tianqing, you damned bastard. Right now, I'm covered in injuries and my strength has dropped greatly in the 7 Stars Pagoda. I won't bicker with a bastard like you. After leaving the 7 Stars Pagoda, I'll definitely make you kneel and beg for mercy." Xueqi bore this grudge in his heart and glared fiercely at Ji Tianqing before turning to walk down the mountain. Ji Tianqing could not be bothered with him anymore. He rode on Qian Yu and flew into the sky, continuing to fly forward. Before he entered the 7 Stars Pagoda, Yun Yao had imparted her experience to him. If he wanted to successfully pass the 5th level, he had to find the end of the world and the portal to the next level. At that time, Ji Tianqing thought that it did not sound difficult. Only now did he understand that it was extremely dangerous and as difficult as ascending to the heavens. After entering the 5th level, humans would become extremely small and insignificant and would have to face countless demon beasts that were as large as mountains. In a situation where one could not fly, if a small person wanted to find the end of the world, they would have to travel through the mountains on foot. Who knew how long that would take? Furthermore, while trekking through the mountains, they would have to fight against Origin Core Realm demons. It was simply too difficult. Fortunately, Ji Tianqing did not hide or run after encountering those demons. He fought side by side with his 2 pets and killed several demons. His strength was constantly increasing and his size had returned to normal. Now that he could fly in the air on Qian Yu, his chances of passing the level had increased by many times. After all, flying in the air was much faster than walking. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. During these 2 days, Qian Yu and the little black dragon took turns to fly. The 2 of them flew for more than 3,000 kilometers in total, and even stopped to rest a few times in between. Although Ji Tianqing had yet to find the end of the world, his strength and that of his 2 pets were still increasing steadily. He continued to search unhurriedly. Every 6 to 8 hours, he would let Qian Yu and the little black dragon take turns to rest. Late at night on the 5th day, he finally arrived at the end of the world. It was a towering mountain that was more than 10,000 meters tall. Behind the mountain was endless darkness with nothing in sight. The 10,000-meter-tall mountain was a lone peak. The mountain walls were so steep that they were almost perfectly straight. Half of the mountain was covered by the sea of clouds. Ji Tianqing controlled Qian Yu and continued to fly up into the sky. After passing through the vast sea of clouds, they finally reached the peak of the giant mountain. The top of the mountain was flat, and there was a gate that was 100 meters tall, shining with white light. That was the portal to the 6th level. Qianyu landed on the peak of the mountain. Ji Tianqing put the two of them back into the pouch and stepped into the portal. With a flash of light, Ji Tianqing's figure disappeared. In the next moment, he left the 5th floor of the 7 Stars Pagoda and entered the 6th floor, appearing in an unfamiliar world. He looked around and realized that he was standing on a green grassland. The ground was soft and damp, covered with grass that was half a man's height. Occasionally, he could see some wild flowers in the grass. The air was filled with the faint fragrance of plants. The sky was blue and white clouds were floating in the sky. He looked up and saw several rolling mountains in the distance. They were located in the north, south, east, and west. In the distance, there were many mountains of different heights scattered in the vast grassland. Every mountain range was covered by lush green forests. Thin clouds and mist rose from them, emitting a majestic aura of green wood. The air was filled with rich spiritual energy, turning this place into a land of treasures. Cultivating here would yield twice the result with half the effort and could quickly improve one's strength. Ji Tianqing walked in the grassland for a while and saw the situation around him clearly. He could not help but mutter softly, "What a treasure land with abundant spiritual qi. It'll be great if I can cultivate here for a long time." However, he was just thinking about it. He would not stay here. He kept in mind the purpose of this trip. He only wanted to pass through the 6th level as soon as possible, climb to the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda, and place the Jade Soul Coffin. Afterward, he released Qianyu from the 100 Treasures brocade pouch and rode it into the sky. Qianyu carried him into the sky and flew forward at lightning speed. When he reached a height of 1,000 meters in the sky, he saw a wider world. His mood and vision were broadened. Eldest senior sister said that the world on the 6th level is very special. There are no obvious dangers, but it's very mysterious. She said that this is a world of formations. I have to crack the most wonderful formation to leave this place and enter the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda. What kind of formation is the most wonderful formation? And where is it? Ji Tianqing silently pondered as he observed the mountains, rivers, and earth below. Very quickly, 4 hours passed. Qianyu flew for hundreds of miles. Ji Tianqing also saw the situation within a few hundred miles. In the surrounding 500 miles, there was a boundless grassland with more than a dozen mountains scattered on the grassland. Chapter 327. Using heaven and earth as an array was almost a godlike method. It was as difficult as ascending to heaven to crack such a divine array and find the entrance to the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda. If one did not have high attainments in array formations, broad vision and great wisdom, it was absolutely impossible to see through it. It was also because of this that among the disciples of the various sects, except for Yun Yao, no one could pass the 6th level and reach the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda. Ji Tianqing understood this point, but he was not worried or flinched. His array attainments were comparable to that of an array grandmaster, and his experience and insight were extremely high. It was just that his strength had not reached the origin core realm. Qianyu flew in the sky for a day and took him to 1,000 miles radius. In this way, the grasslands and earth within 1,000 miles radius, dozens of mountains, and 2 lakes were clearly imprinted in his mind. The scene of heaven and earth within 1,000 miles radius shrank into a picture scroll in his mind, like an array diagram. He sat cross-legged on a mountain peak, closed his eyes, and silently observed this array diagram, deducing and calculating a way to crack it. Time passed, and the stars moved. Soon, another 2 days had passed. He deduced the array diagram in his mind thousands of times, and after repeated predictions and calculations, he finally found a way to crack it. This array formed by heaven and earth has a total of 49 mountains, and there is a lake on the east and west sides. Not only does this formation contain the techniques of the 9 palaces, it also contains the profundities of the Big Dipper, and it even contains the secrets of the 4 symbols divine dragons. The 2 lakes are the finishing touches that allow the entire grand formation to come to life. If that's the case, then I'll try the 7 stars reverse, 6 directions, and 3 mountains divide the 4 seas to crack the array. Maybe it will work. After making up his mind, Ji Tianqing rode Qianyu into the sky and flew toward the southwest. 4 hours later, he came to a mountain peak that was thousands of feet tall and began to use his array formation skills to set up an array. He spent an entire day to set up a top-grade profound-grade formation that covered the entire mountain peak. The array absorbed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth from all directions and gathered a majestic and mighty power, secretly changing the array pattern of the mountain peak. A few hours later, an incomparably magical scene appeared. This towering mountain, which was thousands of feet tall and covered an area of 50 miles, actually began to move slowly. The 10,000 feet tall mountain rumbled across the grassland, moving 100 meters to the east before it stopped. Although the mountain had only moved 100 meters, this distance was insignificant compared to the size of the mountain. However, a mountain that was thousands of meters tall was actually moved 100 meters away. How terrifying was the power required to do that? Not to mention a Tongxian realm martial artist, even a Yuan Dan realm martial artist would not be able to do it. Only by using an array and borrowing the invisible power of heaven and earth could such a magnificent feat be accomplished. Ji Tianqing revealed a gratified smile when he saw that the mountain had moved 100 meters. Then, he rode Chen Yu up into the sky and looked down at the ground, observing the movements of the surrounding mountains. I've already reverse-engineered the heaven and earth great formation. The movement of the Earth Palace's mountain peak will trigger a change in the entire great formation. Next, there should be some changes to the peak of the Tianqian position. As he spoke, he looked expectantly towards the northeast, towards a mountain peak 100 miles away. As expected, the mountain that was thousands of feet tall also began to tremble and shake, emitting an earth-shattering rumble as it slowly moved. After 100 breaths of time, the mountain moved 100 meters away and stopped moving. Ji Tianqing looked towards the southeast and muttered in a low voice, "Next, the peak of the Taiyuan position should be moving." His words were like a divine edict, as if he could mobilize the power of heaven and earth and move the 3 mountains and 5 peaks. As soon as he finished speaking, the huge mountain 100 miles to the southeast also began to rumble and move. In the next few hours, the 40 over mountains within 1,000 miles were all pushed by the power of the heaven and earth great formation, and moved 100 meters away on the grassland. In the end, even the 2 pearl-like lakes magically shifted their positions. Ji Tianqing used the power of the formation to move a mountain, but it caused a chain reaction in the entire heaven and earth great formation, causing every mountain and lake to move. Such a miraculous scene caused Chen Yu and the little black dragon to exclaim in amazement, and they admired Ji Tianqing greatly. Compared to the vast expanse of heaven and earth, Ji Tianqing was as insignificant as a speck of dust. But he used the formation to borrow the invisible and mysterious power of heaven and earth to change the layout of this world. The vast expanse of heaven and earth in front of him was like a game of chess, allowing him to command and move as he wished. Such a method was like that of a god. After a few hours, it was already late at night, and the changes in the heaven and earth great formation finally stopped. In the center of the grassland, between 2 towering mountains, a dazzling white light suddenly lit up the night sky. The dazzling white light condensed into a huge hole in the sky. The hole was like a whirlpool, and it was pitch black inside, making it impossible to see anything clearly. But Ji Tianqing knew that this whirlpool-like hole was the passage to the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda. A gratified smile appeared in his eyes, and he rode Chen Yu toward the hole of white light. Whoosh! The white light flashed, and his figure was swallowed up. A moment later, the whirlpool of white light suddenly disappeared, and the night sky became pitch black again, as if nothing had ever appeared. Ji Tianqing also passed through the spatial passage and arrived at the 7th level of the 7 Stars Pagoda. Whoosh! In a flash of light, Ji Tianqing's figure appeared out of thin air, and he landed on a round plate paved with black boulders. The round plate had a radius of 10 miles, and it was paved with countless ancient black stone slabs, and there were deep ravines carved into the ground. The countless ravines formed a dense network of lines and veined patterns, interweaving into a mysterious and massive diagram. Ji Tianqing could tell at a glance that the black stone plate beneath his feet was the formation plate of a large formation. The formation plate was surrounded by a sea of white clouds, and the sea of clouds was vast and boundless, as if there was no end to it. Ji Tianqing walked to the edge of the formation plate and looked into the sea of clouds, but he could not see what was under the sea of clouds. He looked up at the sky and saw a vast starry sky above him. The dark starry sky was dotted with tens of thousands of stars, forming a mysterious and vast galaxy array. Countless stars were shining with silver starlight, and they sprinkled on the black formation plate, causing the veined patterns on the formation plate to flicker with blurry starlight. So, this is the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda. Just as Senior Sister said, this is the place closest to the starry sky. What a magnificent sight of the sea of clouds and the starry sky! Ji Tianqing looked up at the tranquil starry sky, and his eyes were fixed on a pale red star in the northeast, and he revealed a gratified smile as he murmured in a low voice. Cuckoo! I've finally reached the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda. I see it, that huge and dazzling star is the Red Pole Star. Ji Tianqing couldn't see the changes in Xueqi's body. However, he could tell that after the jade soul coffin had transferred the pure astral energy into her body, her condition had stabilized, and her breathing had become more stable and peaceful. Ji Tianqing sat on the 9 lotus throne pattern and stared intently at the jade soul coffin for a long time. Seeing that Xueqi's condition had stabilized and there were no abnormal reactions, he was relieved. Then, he waved his hands and released rays of true essence to start the array. He wanted to set up a small tranquility array and seal the jade soul coffin in the stamen, so that it could absorb the energy of the silver crystal for a long time. If he were somewhere else, he would only need an hour to set up a small tranquility array. However, under his feet was the 7 stars array, and the jade soul coffin was placed in the center of the 9 lotus thrones. The tranquility array he set up had to be compatible with the 7 stars array and the 9 lotus thrones in order to be effective. This made it more difficult for him to set up the array at least 10 times. Fortunately, he was an array grandmaster, which was why he could complete such a difficult task. If he were an ordinary ethereal enlightenment master, he would never be able to do it. Time passed silently. The vast starry sky and the stars in the sky seemed to be eternally unchanging. A day passed quickly. Ji Tianqing continued to release true essence from his palms and created rays of golden light, which consumed a lot of his true essence. At this time, he had used up 80% of his true essence and was extremely tired. Not only was his face pale, but his forehead was also sweating. Fortunately, he finally finished setting up the tranquility array and successfully placed the jade soul coffin. He slowly retracted his hands and let out a long breath. Phew! It's finally done. He looked down at the stamen and saw a palm-sized golden light shield protecting the jade soul coffin. He could not help but feel relieved. He looked through the golden light shield and stared at the small jade soul coffin. He whispered, "Cuckoo, you can sleep here peacefully. When you wake up, the power of the Big Dipper star will have strengthened your red star bloodline to an extremely powerful level. When that time comes, not only will you be able to refine the foreign race's power sealed in your soul, but your strength will also increase by leaps and bounds." Ji Tianqing's voice became weaker and weaker as he muttered to himself. He quickly sat cross-legged and closed his eyes. He silently cultivated to recover his true essence and stamina. In order to place the jade soul coffin and set up the small tranquility array, he had used up almost all of his energy and was extremely weak. At this time, he did not consume any elixirs or spirit fruits. With the help of the 7 stars array and the silver crystal, he could quickly recover his strength. As he cultivated, the silver crystal also released strands of silver light that flowed into his body. The silver light was the power of the stars. It was of a higher grade and purer than the spirit energy of heaven and earth. Ji Tianqing continued to refine the power of the stars. While recovering his strength, he could also use the power of the stars to refine his acupoints. 3 days passed unknowingly. After 3 days and 3 nights of cultivation, he had absorbed a huge amount of power of the stars. His strength had finally recovered to its peak. Moreover, he had also used the power of the stars to refine 3 acupoints. The 8 acupoints in the 6th sword vein had all been refined. Ji Tianqing had finally broken through the 6th level of the Mystic Enlightening stage and reached the 7th level of the Mystic Enlightening stage. However, at this time, a white light suddenly flashed in the silent 7 stars array. Swoosh! After the white light dissipated, a figure in a white robe appeared on the black array plate out of thin air. This person was Xueqi. His white robe was tattered and stained with blood and dust. His long hair was also tangled in a mess. He looked like a beggar with disheveled hair and a dirty face. However, he was exuding an arrogant aura. Standing on the black array plate, He looked up at the dark starry sky and laughed proudly. Ha ha ha. Without Yun Yao, Xueqi, am the top genius. So what if the heaven and earth array is formed? With my knowledge and wisdom, I have only failed twice. I can break it on the third try. Ji Tianxing cast a sidelong glance at him. His expression was still indifferent as he said with a faint smile, "Is that so? Then why are you in such a sorry state, like a beggar? Is this a popular way of dressing up in the Tianjin sect?" You! Xueqi gnashed his teeth in anger. His blood was surging in his chest and abdomen, and he almost spat out blood. If Ji Tianxing had shouted out in anger, maybe Xueqi wouldn't have been so angry. However, Ji Tianxing's demeanor was very indifferent. He always had a condescending attitude, looking down at people with cold eyes. Xueqi's self-esteem and pride had been trampled on by Ji Tianxing time and time again, which had accumulated a great deal of anger in his heart. However, Xueqi didn't act on impulse. He forced himself to suppress his anger. Ji Tianxing has been cultivating here for a long time. He has been conserving his energy and keeping his strength at the peak state. I have just reached the 7th floor. My injuries haven't healed and my strength hasn't recovered. If I were to fight him now, I would be at a disadvantage. Xueqi analyzed silently. He decided to endure for a while and teach Ji Tianxing a lesson when he recovered his strength. Thinking of this, he glared at Ji Tianxing and shouted in a deep voice, "Ji Tianxing, the 7 Stars Pagoda is a dangerous place. Those who can reach the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda are all top geniuses. I won't bicker with you today for the time being. Wait until next year's Stars List tournament and I'll defeat you in front of everyone on the star platform. Let's see what qualifications you have to be arrogant then." Ji Tianxing, of course, could see through his thoughts and couldn't help but sneer contemptuously. "Since you're so confident, Xueqi, why wait until next year's Stars List tournament? I see that this place is spacious and suitable for a fight. Why don't you make your move now and let me see how you're going to defeat me?" He mercilessly exposed Xueqi, causing Xueqi's face to turn ashen and full of anger. "Ji Tianxing, you're courting death." Xueqi roared and rushed towards Ji Tianxing as fast as a gust of wind. He punched out 2 basin-sized fistlights and fiercely smashed towards Ji Tianxing's head. Ji Tianxing immediately counterattacked. A strong fighting intent burst out from his body and he also punched Xueqi with his fists. Bam! The fists of the 2 men fiercely collided with each other, causing a loud dull sound and a violent burst of energy. Ji Tianxing stood motionless and didn't even take half a step back. Xueqi's body was shaken and he staggered back 5 steps and almost fell to the ground. He was injured and his strength had not recovered yet. He was not Ji Tianxing's opponent at all. He shouted with shame and anger, "Ji Tianxing, you've gone too far. Do you dare to give me a day? I'll be able to defeat you easily after I've recovered my strength." He wanted to goad Ji Tianxing into action to stall for time. But he didn't expect that Ji Tianxing didn't fall for it at all. Ji Tianxing curled his lips and sneered disdainfully. "Don't make a fool of yourself in front of me with such a low-level provocation. I came here first, so this area is mine. If you want to heal and cultivate, then get the hell out of here. Otherwise, I don't mind throwing you out of the 7 Stars Pagoda." Xueqi was so angry that his lungs almost exploded. He clenched his fists and his whole body was trembling. In the past few years, which genius disciple of the younger generation didn't greet him with a smile and respect? Who dared to scold and insult him to his face? When had he ever been insulted like this? "Ji Tianxing, just you wait. I'll remember this grudge." Xueqi's face was ferocious. He stared at Ji Tianxing with resentment and roared in a hoarse voice. Ji Tianxing didn't expect that Xueqi could still swallow his anger at this point. He was a little surprised and thought to himself, "This Xueqi is really good at enduring. He's obviously a scheming person." Since Xueqi had admitted defeat, he couldn't be bothered with him anymore. He sat cross-legged on the ground and continued to cultivate with the help of the silver crystal. Xueqi glared at him fiercely and turned to leave. He wanted to go to the edge of the 7 Stars Pagoda array to heal his injuries. However, he suddenly saw the silver crystal and the small jade soul coffin in front of Ji Tianqing. He raised his eyebrows and greed flashed in his eyes. That shining silver crystal is located in the center of the 7 stars pagoda array. It should be the soul crystal that Master mentioned. What's that jade box? Ji Tianqing seems to care a lot about it? Xueqi stared at the soul crystal and the jade soul coffin and thought to himself, the 7 stars pagoda is only open for 1 day. 1 day in the outside world is half a month in the pagoda. At most, in 5 days, Ji Tianqing and I will be sent out of the 7 stars pagoda. He has been guarding the soul crystal. How can I do it? No, I have to heal my injuries as soon as possible. After I recover my strength, I'll think of a way to take the soul crystal. Chapter 330. The top of the 7 stars pagoda finally regained its tranquility. Xueqi sat on the ground, took out a few healing elixirs and consumed them. He circulated his energy to heal his injuries and silently restored his strength. Ji Tianqing sat in the middle of the 7 stars array, closed his eyes and circulated his energy to refine his acupoints with the help of the stars. Both of them did not want to waste any time, so they concentrated on cultivating and improving their strength. Before Ji Tianqing came to the 7 stars pagoda, Yun Yao told him that the 7 stars pagoda would only be open for a day. The flow of time in the pagoda was different from that in the ancient realm of the stars. A day in the ancient realm was half a month in the pagoda. He calculated the time and found that the 7 stars pagoda would send him out in 5 days at most. In these 5 days, he wanted to use the mysterious and powerful stars to improve his strength as much as possible. After all, cultivating here for 5 days was equivalent to cultivating outside for 2 months. If he missed this opportunity, he would have to wait for another year. Time passed quickly and a day passed quickly. After a day and night of cultivation, Xueqi's injuries had basically healed and his strength had recovered by 90%. He ended his cultivation and quietly turned his head to look at Ji Tianqing in the middle of the array. Seeing that Ji Tianqing was still cultivating with his eyes closed, a cold light flashed in his eyes. Then, he silently stood up and walked toward Ji Tianqing. He stopped behind Ji Tianqing and observed the soul crystal and the jade soul coffin. Soon, he found the tranquility array set up by Ji Tianqing and Ji Ku, who was sleeping in the jade soul coffin. Ji Tianqing, that bastard. No wonder he was guarding the soul crystal. It turns out that he brought someone in. Does he want to use the 7 stars array and the soul crystal to heal that girl? Xueqi frowned, anger surging in his eyes. Seeing that Ji Tianqing was still cultivating and did not seem to notice his approach, a thought appeared in his mind. In order to obtain the soul crystals, I have to first destroy the tranquility array set up by Ji Tianqing. Once I try to break the formation, he'll definitely wake up and stop me. No, I have to get rid of him first. Therefore, Xueqi quietly walked behind Ji Tianqing. He circulated the true essence in his body and gathered all the power he had accumulated in his right hand. Then, he fiercely slapped the back of Ji Tianqing's head. He wanted to knock out Ji Tianqing with a single palm strike and then throw him into the sea of clouds. As a result, Ji Tianqing would fall out of the 7 stars pagoda and no one would be able to stop him. His right palm, which was glowing with dazzling flames, was about to hit Ji Tianqing's head. At this critical moment, Ji Tianqing, who was cultivating, suddenly opened his eyes. Without turning his head, he raised his left hand and sent a backhand slap towards Xueqi. His left arm turned red, and the red flame true fire gushed out of his palm, condensing into a fiery palm the size of a basin. Bang! The 2 fiery palms collided fiercely and exploded with a muffled sound, bursting into flames all over the sky. Ji Tianqing sat in the same place without moving, but Xueqi was forced to take 3 big steps back before he was able to neutralize the violent impact. He suddenly widened his eyes, and his face was filled with disbelief. I've already recovered 90% of my strength, and I took advantage of his cultivation to launch a sneak attack. How could I still be pushed back by him? At the same time, Ji Tianqing stood up and turned to look at Xueqi. He shouted in a cold voice, Xueqi, I gave you a chance to cultivate here, but you shamelessly sneak attacked me. You're digging your own grave. Ji Tianqing shouted angrily. He instantly pulled out the black dragon sword and slashed at Xueqi with all his strength. At that moment, the black dragon sword turned into a huge cold sword light, revealing the shadow of a divine dragon. Roar! A deafening dragon roar rang out, spreading throughout the entire Seven Stars Great Array. The golden divine dragon shadow, with the power to split the sky and earth, instantly drowned Xueqi. Xueqi had no time to dodge and could only pull out his sword to block. Bang! With a loud bang, he was sent flying by the divine dragon's sword light. He spat out blood and flew more than 10 meters away, smashing hard on the black stone ground. Cough, cough. Xueqi coughed violently and blood flowed out of his nose and mouth. He looked more and more embarrassed. He struggled to get up, holding a green sword in his hand. He glared at Ji Tianqing and shouted, "Ji Tianqing! You damned bastard! How dare you draw your sword at me? Do you want to fight me to the death?" Ji Tianqing coldly shouted with an indifferent face. "You sneak attacked me when I was cultivating. Such a despicable and vicious act. It's only right for me to kill you." Xueqi refused to admit it and cursed angrily, "Bullshit. You were the one who broke the rules first. I just came closer to check the situation. You violated the rules set by the 8 sects and brought others into the 7 Stars Pagoda. You even placed them in the 7 Stars Array. What are your intentions?" Of course, Ji Tianqing could not explain to him about Ji Ku. He shouted angrily, "Xueqi, cut the crap. Show me your full strength. Let me see where your arrogance lies." As soon as his voice fell, Ji Tianqing's figure flashed and pounced on Xueqi. He waved his sword and sword light filled the sky. Xueqi also waved his sword and fought back. He displayed his exquisite swordsmanship and dozens of huge sword lights shot out like a rain of arrows. Bang, bang, bang. The sword lights from both sides collided fiercely and burst out a series of muffled sounds, stirring up a violent hurricane. The sword lights that filled the sky collapsed and turned into countless sword light fragments, scattering in all directions. In just 20 breaths, the two of them had exchanged more than a dozen moves and clashed head-on several times. Ji Tianqing originally thought that he could easily defeat Xueqi with his strength at LV7 Tongxian realm. However, Xueqi was the chief disciple of the Tianjian sect after all. His swordsmanship cultivation was exquisite. After exchanging more than a dozen moves, neither of them gained the upper hand and the fight ended in a draw. Ji Tianqing immediately put away his black dragon sword and displayed the flying star swordsmanship. He activated the sword embryo in his body and released 2 huge golden sword lights. They attacked Xueqi from both sides. Gale Thunder Strike. The 2 3-meter-long golden sword lights exploded with a dazzling golden light. Mixed with the violent hurricane, it was like a huge golden thunderbolt that struck Xueqi on the spot. With a loud bang, Xueqi was sent flying. His face was covered in blood as he fell 10 meters away. He gritted his teeth and endured his injuries. He struggled to get up and wanted to use his swordsmanship to fight back. At this moment, Ji Tianqing released another huge flaming sword light and attacked him. Crimson Dragon Flash. The 5-meter-long flaming sword light was like a flaming divine dragon that instantly engulfed Xueqi's figure. Boom! Chapter 331. Xueqi was lying on the ground, covered in blood. He was seriously injured. He struggled to get up. His whole body was trembling, and he had to lean on his sword to stand firm. In addition to anger, there was also shock and disbelief in his heart. He didn't expect that he would still be easily crushed by Ji Tianqing, even after he had recovered 90% of his strength. The two had only exchanged a few moves, but he was seriously injured by Ji Tianqing. He couldn't believe or accept this result. Xueqi felt a chill run down his spine when he saw Ji Tianqing walking toward him with a murderous aura emanating from his body. He glared at Ji Tianqing and roared in a hoarse voice, "Ji Tianqing, what do you want to do? Do you dare to kill me?" This is the 7 Stars Pagoda, a place jointly controlled by the 8 sects. The 8 sects have long stipulated that the disciples of each sect are not allowed to kill each other. If you dare to kill me, my Tianjian sect will use this as an excuse to suppress your sky-bearing sect. At that time, your sky-bearing sect will become the target of public criticism. You, Ji Tianqing, will also be a sinner who has brought disaster to your sky-bearing sect. Obviously, Xueqi was afraid, so he deliberately said these words to threaten Ji Tianqing. Before entering the Seven Stars Pagoda, he didn't put Ji Tianqing in his eyes and didn't understand Ji Tianqing's nature. He couldn't help but worry. Ji Tianqing looked murderous. If he really wanted to kill him, what should he do? Ji Tianqing still walked towards him with large strides. He stared at him indifferently and said in a contemptuous tone, "Xueqi, don't use the tiger's skin as a banner. You're just greedy for life and afraid of death. Since you're so cowardly and afraid of death, where did you get the courage to sneak attack me? Where did your arrogance and pride go?" Xueqi was ashamed and angry, but he couldn't flare up. He could only swallow his anger and say, "Ji Tianqing, don't be too greedy. Even though I've offended you, you've already injured me to this extent. We're even now." As he spoke, he kept backing away, staring at Ji Tianqing warily. In fact, his heart was filled with grief, indignation, and rage. He was madly cursing Ji Tianqing to die. He had long since made up his mind that as long as he could get through this difficult situation, he would definitely think of a way to kill Ji Tianqing and cut Ji Tianqing into pieces. Ji Tianqing approached step by step with a sneer on his face. He said in a mocking tone, "Are we even now? Xueqi, you're lying to me. At this moment, you must be thinking of killing me, right? You don't have to swallow your anger, and you don't have to bear the humiliation and plot revenge in the future. Come on. Didn't you want to kill me? A great opportunity is right in front of you. Make your move." Xueqi clenched his teeth. He could neither defend himself nor put down his dignity to beg Ji Tianqing for mercy. He kept backing away and soon retreated to the edge of the Seven Stars Array. 10 meters behind him was a vast sea of white clouds. At this moment, Ji Tianqing bellowed in a contemptuous tone, "Xueqi, you have ulterior motives. I can't let you stay here. Today, I'll give you an unforgettable lesson. If you're lucky enough to survive, then consider yourself lucky." After that, he turned into a golden shadow and rushed toward Xueqi as fast as lightning. In the blink of an eye, he rushed in front of Xueqi. He raised his left hand and condensed a huge flaming palm with the red flame true fire. He slammed it toward Xueqi's chest. Xueqi was shocked and subconsciously put his sword in front of his chest to block Ji Tianqing's palm. Bang! In a dull loud noise, Xueqi was sent flying by the giant flaming palm on the spot. He flew backward without any resistance, drawing an arc in the air before tumbling and landing in the vast sea of clouds more than 10 meters away. Ah! Xueqi's figure was drowned in the sea of clouds, but his mournful screams still echoed in the air. It was early in the morning. In the open space under the Seven Stars Pagoda, the mountain wind whistled and the morning dew was heavy. It had been 16 hours since the Seven Stars Pagoda opened. 5 young disciples stood in the open space. They stood in groups of 2 or 3 and whispered to each other. These 5 young disciples had already entered the Seven Stars Pagoda. However, they failed to pass the 4th and 5th levels and were ejected from the Seven Stars Pagoda in advance. Even so, everyone did not feel embarrassed. They had long been accustomed to it. Everyone whispered to each other and looked up at the Seven Stars Pagoda, waiting for the results. As of now, there were still 3 disciples in the Seven Stars Pagoda. There was a bronze lamp on the 6th level of the Seven Stars Pagoda, and 2 bronze lamps on the 7th level. This undoubtedly meant that one of the 3 disciples stayed on the 6th level, and 2 of them had reached the 7th level. Chao Xian, True Martial Sect, and Windfire Sect's chief disciples stood together. They looked up at the 7th level of the Seven Stars Pagoda and whispered to each other. Yun Yao didn't come this year, but there are still 2 people who can reach the top of the Seven Stars Pagoda. It's unbelievable. It's really unbelievable. The 3 people who haven't come out yet are Senior Brother Wen Yu, Feng Min, and Ji Tianqing. I wonder who the 2 people who reached the 7th level are? In my opinion, the first person to reach the 7th level must be Senior Brother Wen Yu. As for the second person, it should be Feng Min, yes. It's already a miracle that Ji Tianqing could pass the 4th and 5th level. How could he reach the 7th level? Hee, Senior Brother Wen Yu is still the best. Chapter 332. Following the loud noise, the ground shook violently several times, and smoke and dust flew up into the sky. Seeing this scene, the few disciples widened their eyes and let out a low cry. "Oh my God! Falling from 1,000 meters high, even if he doesn't die, he'll be crippled? So miserable. I wonder who this unlucky guy is? This guy seems to have fallen from the sea of clouds. Could it be that he fell from the 7th level? Impossible? If he entered the 7th level, he would only be sent out when the time is up. How could he be ejected in advance? Look, there are 2 bronze lamps on the 7th level. One of them is out." Suddenly hearing a disciple's exclamation, everyone looked up at the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda. He saw that one of the 2 copper lamps that were originally lit had indeed gone out. Seeing this scene, Xueqi and the few disciples turned pale with fright. Their expressions became extremely interesting. That person's figure doesn't look like a woman. It shouldn't be Feng Min. Since it's not Feng Min, then it's very likely to be Ji Tianqing or senior brother Wen Yu. It must be Ji Tianqing. In a few words, the few disciples guessed the identity of the person who fell miserably. Xueqi frowned and cursed in a low voice. Ji Tianqing, this bastard. He actually reached the 7th level? The other 2 disciples quickly followed up and asked puzzledly. Then why did he fall again? Could it be that he slipped and fell? Hee, is there a need to guess? He must have been thrown down by senior brother Wen Yu. Let's go and take a look. Ha, let's go. I want to see if Ji Tianqing, that bastard, fell to his death. Xueqi and the 2 young disciples not only did not have the slightest bit of sympathy, but also looked like they were gloating. Everyone rushed to the edge of the array and poked their heads to look inside the array. They saw that the grassland under the 7 Stars Pagoda was still covered in dust and smoke. The ground was smashed into a huge pit with a radius of 5 meters. A young man in a white robe was lying in the deep pit. This person's white robe was tattered and full of holes and bloodstains, almost turning into a gray robe. His long hair was also tangled together, making him look like a chicken coop. This person's figure was tall and robust, yet his appearance was in a sorry state. He was sloppy like a beggar, and it was simply unbearable to look at. He lay in the deep pit and twitched. Another pool of blood flowed out from his body and dyed the ground red. He struggled a few times before he struggled to get up and raised his blood-stained head. Seeing this, Xueqi and the other young disciples were dumbfounded. "You are actually senior brother Wen Yu? How is this possible? Senior brother Wen Yu, how did you fall down? How could this be? Why wasn't Ji Tianqing the one who fell? What the hell is going on?" Senior apprentice brother Wen Yu, you clearly ascended to the 7th level. How did you fall down? Everyone was stunned. Their hearts were filled with shock and confusion. They had no idea what was going on. Xueqi's mood was the most complicated. His face was gloomy and his eyes were surging with anger. Last night, he vowed to the others that Ji Tianqing would never be able to ascend to the 7th level. He would definitely be ejected and fall miserably. But the truth was the exact opposite. Ji Tianqing did not appear, but Shi Wenyu fell down. Seeing Shi Wenyu's miserable appearance, he felt a chill down his spine and his heart was secretly alarmed and fearful. He could not imagine what Ji Tianqing had done to Shi Wenyu. At this time, Shi Wenyu staggered out of the pit. He did not care about the bloodstains on his face and the mud on his body. He looked up at the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda and roared hysterically, "Ji Tianqing, just you wait. I will remember this. One day, I will make you pay back 10 times. These 2 short sentences contained endless anger and killing intent. It seemed that it had exhausted all of Shi Wenyu's strength. He staggered to the edge of the array, stepped through the transmission light door, and returned to the open space under the pagoda. Several disciples quickly gathered around him. They were full of shock and curiosity as they asked him what had happened. But Shi Wenyu's injuries were extremely serious. His whole body had turned into a blurry blood man and his consciousness was on the verge of fainting. He did not care about the crowd's questions. He staggered out of the open space and went down the mountain alone. After such a thing happened, he was in such a miserable state. He did not have the face to stay under the pagoda, let alone talk to the crowd. Xueqi and several young disciples looked at Shi Wenyu's figure in the distance. They all showed extremely complicated expressions and whispered to each other. How could this be? It seems that Shi Wenyu was defeated by Ji Tianqing? It's incredible. Ji Tianqing came to the 7 Stars Pagoda for the first time. He actually ascended to the 7th level and defeated Shi Wenyu. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I would never believe that this was true. Isn't it too incredible? It seems that we have all underestimated Ji Tianqing. Shi Wenyu was severely injured. It shows that Ji Tianqing's strength must be very terrifying. Several disciples were discussing animatedly. Only Qiao Xian did not say a word. His face was as gloomy as ice. Time passed quietly. Unknowingly, 2 hours had passed. At this time, the copper lamp on the 6th level of the 7 Stars Pagoda suddenly went out. A graceful white figure floated down from the sky. Her body was light and graceful. She constantly waved her palms to hit the Tianyuan array with true essence brilliance. With a muffled bang-bang-bang sound, she used the rebound force to reduce the impact of the fall. A moment later, she floated to the ground and walked out of the transmission light door. This beautiful woman with picturesque features and dignified elegance was Feng Min. Although she failed to ascend to the 7th level and was ejected from the 7 Stars Pagoda, she was not injured. However, she was not injured at all, and her posture was not disheveled. Instead, she seemed to be floating in the air. Several young disciples greeted her and looked up at the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda. Now, there was only one copper lamp left on the entire 7 Stars Pagoda that was still lit. Everyone was wondering how Ji Tianqing was so powerful that he could reach the top of the pagoda on his first attempt. What kind of gains would he obtain at the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda? At the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda, the starry sky was still bright. Ji Tianqing sat cross-legged in the center of the array. He used the power of the soul crystal to cultivate and strengthen his strength. His body was covered in a layer of faint starlight. His temperament became deep and peaceful, as if he had merged with the vast starry sky. In the stamen of the lotus platform in front of him, the soul crystal emitted a rich starlight that enveloped the entire jade soul coffin. Ji Ku, who was sleeping in the coffin, was also wrapped in a layer of silver starlight. His aura was calm and peaceful, and his bloodline power was constantly strengthening. Time passed silently. 2 days, 3 days. 5 days passed quickly. When the time was almost up, Ji Tianqing felt something in his heart. He finally ended his cultivation and opened his eyes. He opened his mouth slightly and exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. A wisp of silver qi flowed out of his mouth, emitting bits of starlight. The power of the stars is indeed the most mysterious and powerful force in the world. Its effects are extraordinary. I only cultivated in the 7 Stars array for 5 days, and I used the power of the stars to continuously temper 6 acupuncture points. Sigh. If I can continue cultivating here for a few more days, I can break through to level 8 Tongxian stage in one go. When he thought of this, he felt a little regretful. He lowered his head to look at Ji Ku, who was sleeping in the jade soul coffin, and whispered, "Cuckoo, the time is up. I have to leave now." Chapter 333. Ji Tianqing sat next to the jade soul coffin and looked at Ji Ku gently without saying a word. After about a quarter of an hour, the 7 Stars great array suddenly lit up with a ray of starlight that wrapped around his entire body. Swoosh! With a flash of dazzling starlight, Ji Tianqing disappeared into thin air and was sent out of the 7 Stars Pagoda. This was the rule of the 7 Stars Pagoda. When the time limit was up, the challenger would be sent out. Ji Ku slept in the jade soul coffin and was placed in the 7 Stars array, so he would not be sent out by the pagoda. In the next moment, Ji Tianqing's figure left the 7 Stars Pagoda and appeared in the open space below the pagoda. Swoosh! He stood on the platform with an indifferent expression and calmly looked at the several young disciples not far away. It was evening now, exactly 24 hours after the 7 Stars Pagoda opened yesterday. The faint golden light of the setting sun shone on his body, causing his figure to be dyed with a layer of hazy gold. He actually had the aura of an otherworldly expert. The young disciples were whispering when they saw Ji Tianqing suddenly appear. They all quieted down and looked at him in unison. Everyone was the chief disciples of their respective sects, so their strength and vision were not bad. They could see at a glance that Ji Tianqing was stronger than a day ago, and his aura was more mysterious and restrained. His change was very obvious. Not only did his strength increase, but even his temperament had changed. In the past, his aura was like a treasure sword, but the sharp blade was hidden in the scabbard and did not show its edge. Now, his aura was like the vast and deep starry sky. It was mysterious and tranquil, but it was unfathomable and unfathomable. Feng Min and Wu Yu came up to him and cupped their fists in greeting. They smiled and said, "Junior Marshal Brother Ji, congratulations. I didn't expect Junior Brother Ji to reach the top of the 7 Stars Pagoda on his first try. It's really incredible. It's like a miracle." Ji Tianqing cupped his fists at the two of them and nodded slightly. He didn't say anything. Humble himself? He did not need to. Show off proudly? This was not in his nature. Feng Min and Wu Yu both understood his temperament, so they didn't say anything more. After saying their goodbyes, they turned and left. The other Pill Cauldron sect disciple also came to bid farewell to Ji Tianqing before leaving the 7 Stars Pagoda. In the blink of an eye, there were only 4 people left in the open space. They were Ji Tianqing, Qiao Xian, and the other 2. Qiao Xian and the 2 young disciples walked up to Ji Tianqing and said coldly, "Ji Tianqing, you actually knocked Xueqi down from the 7 Stars Pagoda. The Tianjin sect will remember this. In a few days, we'll meet again. Let's see how you're going to deal with this then." The other 2 young disciples also said with a gloomy expression, "When the disciples of the various sects challenge the 7 Stars Pagoda, even if there is some friction between them, they will never fight to the death. Ji Tianqing, you're so arrogant that you've angered the Tianjin sect and violated the rules set by the 8 sects." Ji Tianqing looked indifferently at Qiao Xian and the other 2. He frowned and said coldly, "So, you want to stand up for Xueqi?" The 2 young disciples' expressions changed and they quickly explained, "Although we're on good terms with Xueqi, we can't stand up for him. Of course, he has to solve his own grievances with you. We don't mean to stand up for him. We're just warning you, Ji Tianqing, to behave yourself in the future. Don't provoke public anger and become everyone's common enemy." Ji Tianqing looked at them calmly and said coldly, "Since you 2 don't dare to stand up for Xueqi, why are you still shouting in front of me?" The 2 young disciples' expressions suddenly stiffened. They were embarrassed and angry. "You, Ji Tianqing. Very good. You're crazy." The 2 of them stared coldly at Ji Tianqing, then took 2 steps back and didn't say anything more. Only Qiao Xian was left standing. Ji Tianqing's gaze fell on him again. He said jokingly, "Qiao Xian, it's said that you and Xueqi are close, like brothers. Xueqi asked for it and ended up in such a miserable state. As a brother, aren't you going to seek justice for him?" His tone was a little playful, but his eyes were as sharp as a sword. Qiao Xian's heart tightened and he was secretly on guard. "Ji Tianqing, don't be arrogant. I just said that when we meet again in a few days, I'll teach you a lesson." "In a few days?" Ji Tianqing frowned, not understanding what he meant. But he didn't ask and said jokingly, "If you want to avenge Xueqi so much, why wait a few days? Now is a good time. You can try." Ji Tianqing's tone was very indifferent, and he looked down on Qiao Xian. Qiao Xian had long hated and resented him. Now that he was being ridiculed, he was so angry that his face turned white and he gritted his teeth. For a moment, he had an impulse to draw his sword and slash at Ji Tianqing to teach him a lesson. But the 2 disciples of the True Martial sect and Windfire sect hurriedly reached out and pressed on his shoulder, giving him a look. The 2 of them used their spiritual sense to persuade Qiao Xian, "Junior brother Qiao, don't be rash. Ji Tianqing is deliberately provoking you to attack. He wants to take the opportunity to teach you a lesson. Senior brother Qiao, even Xueqi is no match for Ji Tianqing. It's even more impossible for us to beat him. Let's bear with it for a while." Qiao Xian only calmed down after hearing the 2's advice. He glared at Ji Tianqing with hatred in his eyes. He gritted his teeth and shouted, "Ji Tianqing! I'm a magnanimous person and won't bicker with a bastard like you." Before he could finish, Ji Tianqing sneered, "Haha, you want to bicker with me, but do you have the guts? You!" Qiao Xian's lungs almost exploded from anger. His entire face turned the color of pig liver, and his eyes were about to spit fire. In his life, he had never been so aggrieved as he was today. Being ridiculed and insulted to his face, he could only swallow his anger and did not even have the courage to attack. He was so angry that he panted rapidly. He twisted his shoulders to break free from the two young disciples' hands and rushed toward Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing, you've gone too far. Chao Xian's blood boiled with anger. He rushed toward Ji Tianxing without a care in the world. He raised his palms and slapped out dozens of huge palm shadows. Each palm shadow was the size of a wash basin and was formed by sharp metal elemental true essence. It contained a powerful force that could split open stones. Although his strength was not as good as Xueqi's, he was also at level 8 Tongxian realm. This Raging Waves palm technique had also been tempered thousands of times, and its power was extremely ferocious. Ji Tianxing looked at the dozens of golden palm shadows coming toward him. He raised his left hand calmly and slapped out a huge flame palm the size of a millstone. Bam bam bam! The terrifying power of the giant flaming palm instantly shattered more than a dozen golden palm shadows. Chao Xian had just sensed that something was wrong. His eyes were filled with shock, but it was too late for him to dodge. With a muffled bam, he was sent flying by the flame palm and landed on the ground 10 meters away. His white robe was scorched by the true flame fire, and his long hair was charred and curled. He looked like he had crawled out of a coal pit and was in a sorry state. Moreover, his internal organs were injured by the terrifying power of the flame palm. He struggled to get up, but he covered his mouth and coughed. Blood flowed out of his mouth. He felt the injuries on his body and was shocked and angry. However, he did not dare to attack Ji Tianxing again. Seeing this, the two disciples from the true martial arts sect and the Windfire sect looked terrible and sighed in their hearts. Ji Tianxing's strength has reached such a terrifying level. Chao Xian can't even take one hit from him. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.